Hey, Chief. How are you?
On a round number, and then it's easy to say. Our election number is this number.
Good evening. Can everyone take their seats, please?
I don't come to your committee meetings, I should.
Good evening. Welcome to the Township of Abington's Board of Commissioner meeting for Thursday, June the 11th, 2015. And may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Stone?
Here.
Spiegelman?
Here.
Sanchez?
Here.
Myers? Here. Markman?
Here.
Kalinowski?
Here.
Carver? Here. Bowman?
Here.
DePlacido?
Here.
Barron?
Here.
Gillespie? Here. Hecker? Jones?
Here.
Klein?
Here.
Here. Commissioner Tom Hecker will be here, but he's running a little late. At this time, will everyone please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have one announcement to make, that there was an executive session held today, June the 11th, on a personnel matter prior to our board meeting this evening. At this time, I'd like to call on Vice President Stephen Klein for approval of the minutes.
Thank you, President Luker. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Board of Commissioners meeting minutes for May 14th, 2015 meeting, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from residents? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. At this time, on our agenda, we have a motion to appoint a vacancy for the Library Board. The Library Board of Trustees to fill the unexpired term of Joanne Werthner until December 31st, 2016. At this time, I'll take any nominations for the position to the Library Board of Trustees.
Didn't the Library Board give us a recommendation?
The Library Board did interview, I believe, 7 or 8 candidates and offered a recommendation to the board, which should be in front of you, but from the blank looks I'm getting, I take it's not there. If we can maybe defer for a few minutes, I'll print that out and give everyone a copy, and we can revisit it in a few minutes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call on Director Thomas Bowman, Director of our Public Works Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. PW1 is the 15, 16, and 1700 blocks of Old Welsh Road sanitary sewer system. And this is a motion to authorize the engineering department to proceed with quotes to prepare engineering and survey plans to sewer 1500, 1600, 1700 blocks of Old Welsh Road to be funded from sanitary sewer retained earnings, and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from residents? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm sorry.
Motion passes.
PW2 is the Abington Township Municipal Waste Transfer Station Radiation Detection Equipment Project. This is a motion to approve and enter into contract with Loris Systems for the Abington Township Municipal Waste Transfer Station Radiation Detection Equipment Project in the amount of $49,760.15 to be funded from Refuge Reserve Capital Fund, and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from residents? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And finally, PW3 is the per diem union collective bargaining agreement for 2016 through 2019, and this is a motion to approve a 4-year collective bargaining agreement with the per diem for the period January 1, 2016 through December 31st, 2019, and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? From staff? Any from residents? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
That concludes our agenda, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas Bowman. At this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Benjamin Sanchez, Director of our Code Enforcement Land Development Committee.
Thank you, President Luker. Tonight we have CE1. This is a public hearing, ordinance number 2093, ordinance to amend Section 801N of the zoning ordinance, purpose to regulate seasonal outdoor sales within the township. And I will give the floor back to you for the public hearing.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to open the hearing for ordinance number 2093. And at first, I'd like to call on our zoning officer, Mark Pennical.
Sir, good evening. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have in front of you tonight is a draft of Ordinance 2093. This was brought in front of you at the request of several of the merchants here in Abington Township. And what you will see this evening is just a very quick and very simple PowerPoint presentation that deals with what the draft is proposing. I guess before we get started, the draft was prepared by our solicitor. It has been reviewed by the Planning Commission and also Montgomery County Planning Commission. But what you see in front of you is an amendment to Section 801N of the current zoning ordinance. The proposal will limit seasonal outdoor sales. They would be permitted in the town commercial district, the mixed-use district, special commercial district, planned business district only. In addition to that, seasonal outdoor sales would be permitted once in any 90-day period and no more than twice a year. Currently in our ordinance, they're permitted 4 times a year, and they have to be at least 30 days apart. The next portion of the ordinance, seasonal outdoor sales would not be permitted within 1,000 feet of any business whose primary use is to sell such merchandise. To be very honest with you, it was brought to you tonight at the request of our local florist. And that's what brings us here. The rest of this is seasonal outdoor sales would not be permitted within any public right-of-way, and it has to be 30 feet from any ADA accessible parking stall. The proposal does not restrict any nonprofit organization, and it does not affect any property that's a religious, a community service use, or emergency service use. The next slide that you see in front of you is just what has taken place at this point. It has been reviewed by Montgomery County Planning Commission, again by Abington Planning Commission. The proposed ordinance amendment only permits outdoor sales to businesses. When it went through our Planning Commission, there were 2 recommendations. The first one, that outdoor sales only be limited to businesses that have a permanent use and occupancy here in Abington. And the second part of this was that they would like to see the minimum distance between a vendor or a brick-and-mortar establishment increased from the proposed 1,000 linear feet to 2,000 linear feet. What you see in front of you right now is just a photograph of 3 of the existing floral shops that are here. The slide to the upper right is directly across the street from the Township Building here on Old York Road. The slide to the left is on Bradfield Avenue in Roslyn. And then I'm sure everyone's aware of Penny's, where that's situated in Keswick Village. The existing locations where we have seasonal outdoor sales on a regular basis, we'll start in the upper left-hand corner. That's the intersection of Easton and Brookdale. It's been an existing dry cleaner for years. The upper right-hand corner was an old Getty station. It's now a non-branded service station. The lower left-hand corner is the Luke Oil Station at Old York and Highland Avenue. The slide in the middle is Old York Road and Moreland Road. And the slide to the lower right-hand corner is Ardsley Train Station. These are the locations that would be exempt that traditionally have yearly outdoor sales. The upper left-hand slide is St. Peter's Episcopal Church. They have an annual pumpkin sale every year. Roslyn Firehouse, I'm sure everybody's aware of the annual Christmas tree sales that go there. We could have added a dozen or more slides, McKinley Firehouse and several other churches. The slide to the lower side of this frame is the North Penn VFW, which has several outdoor events yearly. They have a Christmas tree sale, they have flower sales, and they've had several other events throughout the years. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a presentation. I can certainly answer whatever questions you would have.
Thank you. Are there any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Bowman.
Mr. President, I will not take part in the debate or the vote on this amendment due to a conflict. I did just want to know, I had not seen the 90-day provision, so I was wondering when, was that in the original?
It is in the original draft that was given to us. It's also, Commissioner, in the proposal that was sent to both Montgomery County and to, I'm sorry, the 90-day or...
Yeah, you
90
can't sell
days.
twice within 90 days.
It's in the original Section A, which was the addendum to the ordinance amendment. Thank you.
Was the 90-day part of the original advertising?
No, I didn't see it.
Mark,
Yes,
from when we first approved it?
yes, Section 801N, display storage of goods, it was item number 2 of the draft.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. I just wondered, the County Planning Commission recommended the 2,000 feet and then away from the establishments, and this has the 1,000?
Well, as advertised, it was a 1,000-foot.
I understand that.
1,000 linear foot.
I just wondered why that change.
No, I'm sorry. That recommendation came from Abington Township's Planning Commission.
Right, the other was 2,000 from the county.
No, ma'am.
I thought it was.
No, I'm looking at the county review letter. Their recommendation was recommended to approve proposed zoning amendment. Please note the review comments and recommendation contained in this report are advisory to the municipality. They made no recommendation of any change, other than the fact that we included in with Section 609, the Municipalities Planning Code, as required by law.
I don't have my, sorry to say, my book with me, but I know somewhere it said 2,000 before the county recommended. Okay.
The county review letter is dated April 13th, 2015.
Okay. Commissioner Zappone.
Okay, I'm looking at Exhibit A, and basically, I'm following what Commissioner Gillespie was saying, and as I'm going through here, I see it says 1,000 feet. In here, it says 2,000, and I know we discussed at our last meeting here the 2,000 feet. So what happened to that?
It didn't, sir. In the ordinance that is in front of you that you're looking to pass some kind of judgment on, the listing is 1,000 feet in Exhibit A. The 2,000-foot recommendation came from Abington Township Planning Commission. It's
And
not...
we also brought it up here. I brought it up.
I know that. It's in your minutes, sir.
Okay. So that just is off the table now?
No, sir, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
The board has the ability to amend this any way you see fit.
Okay.
What I'm presenting to you is what was advertised.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, right here.
Commissioner Schreiber.
If there's a special event, and maybe it is a seasonal type thing or not, like a food truck event, would that be, if it's within the feet thing? It's just something that we have talked about, having some kind of a...
Food trucks,
truck,
Commissioner.
like, yeah,
Food trucks have never been considered in with this. Food trucks, the ice cream man, those types of vendors are licensed through Montgomery County Health Department,
Okay.
and we have never issued special event permits for them to operate here in Abington.
Okay. So even though there's food-related things, it's a different category.
County Health Department.
If you invite the Mr. Softy Man to an outdoor event, he's safe.
All right. Can I follow up on that a second? I
Commissioner
mean, that's all
Klein.
fine and good if the actual trucks are in the right of way, but if they're actually sitting on somebody's property, would they be part of this ordinance?
I don't know that we've given that
Because
any
remember,
consideration.
this ordinance is actually amending the zoning ordinance,
Correct.
and if they're food trucks and they're actually sitting in the right of way, are they?
Once again, sir, I mean, they're licensed.
No, I understand that, but once they move on to a private property, are they subjected to this provision that we're
My
debating?
personal opinion would be no, but you may want to direct that question to the solicitor.
I'll take it from anybody.
Yeah, actually, my question wasn't the Mr. Softy driving around. It was if we have an event where it's like a food truck event, where we have food trucks of all different, because that's one of the ideas that came up at our Roslyn Valley Business Association. So is that therefore in competition with local restaurants perhaps, and would fall under this? I don't know.
This proposed ordinance amendment was written with an eye towards the outdoor seasonal sale of products and not with regards to food trucks or other food vendors. Commissioner Klein's point is relevant in that if they are in the right-of-way, this is a zoning amendment that is dealing with property, so it wouldn't apply. We believe the ordinance as written right now would not cover food trucks, and this is, I think, what Mr. Pennical is referring to, and this is the discussion that I've had with Mr. Pennical. We were not asked to draft this with an eye towards capturing food trucks, the ice cream vendor, because the ice cream vendor technically could pull into a lot somewhere, or other items along those lines. We were asked to draft this with an eye towards seasonal outdoor sales, specifically flowers, because that's what seems to be the impetus of this, and that's the way this is drafted. We don't believe it captures food trucks. If the board wants that, we would probably have to look a little bit more deeply into that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Jones.
What would happen if I were to have a vehicle similar to a food truck, but I actually sold flowers from it, and I could drive from place to place within the township? And, I'm not trying to be facetious because, a lot of times if you create, one of the unintended results is if you create a rule, you have people that are going to look at how they can work within that rule. So number one question would be, would that be applicable? The second question may be better answered by one of the florists. Would that present the same problem as a standalone, I'm at that location, open flower shop?
Okay, let me see if I can answer the first half of your question. First of all, yes, I believe this ordinance would cover that, because I don't think you're out of the guides of already having a license to sell your wares through Montgomery County Health Department. Secondly, I would tell you that I think we already have language in the zoning ordinance that takes care of mobile vendors. You've seen, it's been a while since one of our sports teams has won a world championship. But when those days were happening, we had the vendors that tried to set up shop in the gas stations under the 10-by-10 canopy. And again, we had language in the zoning ordinance that was able to shut that down.
I appreciate that for two reasons. First of all, you answered the question. Second of all, the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl, so we're going to have to deal with that again. You heard it right here.
Campaign promise.
Commissioner Schreiber.
Mark, where did you say the thing about the 90-day was in here?
If you
Under
go,
Exhibit
Commissioner, to
A.
Exhibit A, 801N, number 2, it says the issuance of any permit pursuant to this section shall be for a period of 90 days or less, and not more than 2 such permits shall be issued to any applicant in any calendar year. So they have to be at least 90 days apart, and you're limited to 2 per year.
Okay, I got the 90 days. Yeah, I see it, but it's worded differently, so it sounds like you get a permit for 90 days.
I think Mr. Pennical is slightly misstating it. It's for a period of 90 days or less to get your permit, and the way it's written right now, you can only get up to 2 of these permits for a year. Essentially, in lieu of having to have someone, and again, this was regarding flowers, and we know that there are a couple of holidays bunched together that seem to bring a little bit more flowers than other times. So instead of having to have someone come in and apply for a permit for the time around Easter Sunday, or time around Mother's Day, or time around some of those other holidays, it was done in a 90-day period of time. So your permit's good for 90 days if you'd like.
Okay, so it's not precluding you from doing it
No.
for 90 days?
No. And not requiring you to do it for 90 days.
Commissioner Klein.
So, Mr. Clark, so just so I understand, going back to the food truck or the food trucks, is it number 3, the last part of number 3, where it says primary use of the building, storefront, or structure is the sale of such articles, equipment, or merchandise? Is that distincts it or separates itself from actually food, because food is not considered one of those 3 things?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's the way it was written, because that's, again, what was contemplated.
I just want to make sure I understood where that distinction comes in. Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Hearing none. Any from staff? Any from the public? Okay.
Yes, good evening. I'm here as a matter of the public and a business person who's affected by this, but that explanation from the
Excuse me,
solicitor,
sir. Name and address for the
Thomas
record.
Bowman, 2946 Hammond Place, Roslyn. So, solicitor, if you get a permit, it's good for 90 days.
Got to address.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. President, under the solicitor's recent declaration, the permit would be good for 90 days. Is that correct?
The way I understand it, correct? Counselor, is that accurate? Yes, sir.
Okay. And my only other comment on this, I would ask the board not, as a businessman who's affected by this, and my boss, to keep it at 1,000 feet. I think 2,000 is too much. Obviously, it is aimed at us, but we can live with it within certain parameters. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Name and address, please.
Sure, Bridget Sparacio. I'm actually here because of business. My husband and I own Riviera d'Italia, 1185 Easton Road in Roslyn. And our concern was in regards to food trucks. Obviously, it sounds like this ordinance doesn't really pertain to it. But again, just being in the community for 26 years and having a business, in the last few years, we did take over a vacant building and, kind of house our restaurant there. That's why I came out of concern for food trucks. We love to be in Abington Township, and we know businesses help with taxes and that type of thing. So just a reminder, as a business person, for people that do maintain properties and businesses, to see, business owners' side of things also. That's it.
Thank you.
So, wait, can I follow up on that? I have
Commissioner Klein.
So, if a food truck does come into the township, let's say they wanted to park in Roslyn, and as long as they continue to pay the meter fee at the space that they're at, and they're in the right-of-way, and they're licensed by the county, they can continue to do that?
As long as they're meeting all the requirements of the vehicle code,
Right.
as long as they're meeting all the requirements of the health department,
Yep.
and as long as they are parked legally. As of right now, there is nothing in our code book which allows us to prevent them from doing those things.
And would they be required to get a business license in the township?
I just asked the manager about this, and we don't believe we've ever asked any food trucks to get a business license. And again, it's not something we've been asked to look at in
Understood.
depth, so we're not even sure if we could require them to get a business license, because as been mentioned by several others, they're regulated by the Department of Transportation and by the Department of Health. But if it's something you want us to look into, we'll be happy to
So,
look into.
and going down the logical line, we're not getting business taxes from it?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
May I add to that?
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had an opportunity to speak with our tax collector today about this very subject, and these food trucks are required to register with our tax office. I don't know that there's anyone out there going out and checking that they are, but they are per our ordinances are required, per our tax collector.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but Commissioner Myers, when you spoke to him, is it something in the township regulations, or is it something in the business tax law?
I didn't get into that, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, it's loud to your right.
Okay, Commissioner Farron.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Could I just follow up and ask a couple questions with the solicitor? Number one, can you look into that a little bit more with the food trucks and maybe get some feedback to us on that? And number two, if we were going to include that or incorporate food trucks into some kind of a similar ordinance, would this be the place to incorporate it, or would it make sense to create a separate ordinance?
As Commissioner Klein pointed out, it would make sense to create a separate ordinance because this is going into the zoning code. If you want to do something with food trucks, you'd have to do something that's more of a, you'd have to find a place to put it in the township code because, again, they may not be on private property, they may be in the public street. So we'd have to put it somewhere else. So we wouldn't amend this, we'd put it somewhere else.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Zapone.
How do we define food trucks? Is it, Mr. Softy, the catering trucks to go into the construction sites?
I think what we would have to do is we would have to get a definition that did not attempt to exclude one type of food from another, and I think that would be one of the challenges that we would face, would be that it might be impermissible to try to say the ice cream guy who goes into the township park on Saturday nights during Little League is okay, but the burrito and sushi guy who goes somewhere else isn't okay. So we would need to be very clear on our definitions. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Spiegelman.
Mr. President, I was actually wondering if she chooses to answer it, if I could actually ask a question of the previous speaker. Bridget, if it's okay, I was actually just curious as to your experience, if you and Sal ever had any experiences either in your old location or the bigger new location with food trucks on Easton Road, sort of in that kind of proximity to your restaurant?
Well, my husband has noticed food trucks at the Marty Sussman or Eric Sussman location there on Easton Road going towards Willow Grove Mall.
Actually on the property or, I'm sorry, on the property or on the street?
You know what? I would imagine it would be the property, only because of, but my husband saw it, and I didn't get that detailed with him.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate that.
Sure, no problem.
Commissioner Jones.
Just an observation, I think that as times change, I think we are going to have to consider this, and I would also suggest, and I appreciate that the solicitor is going to look into it, because if you look around, the food trucks of 10 years ago or 15 years ago are not the food trucks of today, and there's a lot of places, specifically in Philadelphia, where every single day there are the same 7, 8, 9 food trucks. There are even phone apps that allow you to track the food truck, to see where it is, to see if it's open. Not a shameless plug, but Spot Burger is really good. But they sometimes have all of these trucks, and if that were to come to not only this township but another municipality, you would have crowds because they have lines. So there's a lot of stuff we would have to look at, and I think it is something that we're going to need to pay attention to in the near future.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Public. Thank you. Name and address, please.
Edith Schmid, owner of Elite Florals, 1160 Bradfield Road, also representing Penny's Flowers, with the support of Kremp's Flowers, as well as in Bloom across the street, Conroy's Flowers, and all the other brick-and-mortar businesses, not just florists, but also the sports groups, which I'm a little confused about, because this ordinance was for pop-up stations, be it flowers, be it sports, be it whatever. Okay, how it got, I don't know. Don't really care at this moment. You're going to handle that. I got it. The brick-and-mortar businesses of the Abington Township have come before you many times over several years. I have been the spokesperson for this group because it seems that I have the passion to get up here and inform. And I have been called a pit bull, and that's okay, because sometimes a pit bull gets things done. We've asked for a lot of different things, and we appreciate the fact that the commissioners have taken a lot of what we have asked for truly to heart and considered it. Your own planning commission, okay, recommended abolishing, as I was in this meeting, along with Mr. Mateo will tell you, they recommended abolishing these things and not allowing them. The recommendation came from them, and then the information was given to them about this could possibly cause some legal issues. Okay? Well, okay, it could cause these legal issues both ways, but we'll deal with that as we go. They further said that 1,000 feet was not acceptable. They actually suggested 5,000 feet. And then, after discussion, it was suggested that perhaps 2,000 feet. All right. We have asked for 2,000 feet. We're at 1,000 feet to 2,000 feet. We're actually employing you to please go to that 2,000 feet. 1,000 feet is not enough. Do you realize that if you pass it at 1,000 feet, nothing changes? There'll be no changes. They all stay exactly where they are. Okay? We'll continue to lose revenue, just like now. You're rewarding the people involved. You are smacking us right in the face as tax-paying merchants all year long. You are literally smacking us right in the face. It is our opinion that there isn't a court in the world that would stand by and allow a pop-up station to come after a township who is in support of their merchants who are here year in and year out and helping in every way we possibly can. Okay. Why would this township or any other send a message, we don't matter? Okay? Commissioners, prove to the businesses and the residents who put you up here, please, that you care what does happen to the brick and mortar businesses of this township. The fly-by-night trucks and tents and things that come in and take the revenue away from us do hurt us in many ways. When we can't make our bills, we can't pay your taxes. All right? If the code passes at 1,000 feet, it is clearly a message to all the merchants and the potential merchants that may come into Abington or any other municipality. Why do you want to come here? Your revenue can be taken at any time, for any reason, for any holiday, for any event. Okay? You have a banner behind you that says best place in Abington to live. Would it not be a fabulous thing to have a banner up there that said from every merchant in your township who would support you saying, Abington, the best place to have a business? We'd like you really to consider the 2,000 feet because, as I said, at 1,000 feet, nothing changes and is a direct smack in our face. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Do you mind?
Commissioner Klein.
Thank you. I know we've talked about this, and I actually don't even know if the question's been asked way back when we first advertised it. Do you have, or does anybody, any of the other florists, because I know you guys are organized, have any information or, I guess, data that shows how these pop-up or these temporary sales on these holidays affect your business? Or is it anecdotal?
Let me put that back on you a bit as a commissioner. Why do you not know how much is being sold at each of these stands?
Okay, well, those are two separate questions, so I'd like to know if you have any information on what I asked. Do you, I mean,
I personally, right now, no, I don't.
Okay.
No, I do not. All I know is that when I first moved into the township, my Mother's Day sales should have been X, Y, and Z. Okay? But then they started doing this when all more pop-up stands kept coming, and relocating did not help that. So, again, I don't have the statistics, but I would ask the township find out how much revenue is being taken away. If you know from the pop-up stands how much revenue is being taken per stand, then you already have your answer, sir.
What revenue is being taken away from the township? Tax revenue?
No. Sales tax. Well, my question...
Do they pay sales tax? Do they pay business taxes?
That's my question.
Do we know? I mean...
That's been the big question from day one. Big question.
I mean, I thought they had to get business licenses, correct? And if they're getting business licenses for retail, they have to pay sales tax. Is that my understanding?
That is correct. It is a cash business, though, and I don't know that they're audited, so it's somewhat subjective.
Right, well, I mean, there's a lot of businesses, even brick-and-mortar businesses, that are still cash sales. And so...
So to answer your
So
question...
the answer to your question, because if they're getting business tax, if they're filing business licenses, then they need to file a business tax form, and they need to pay sales tax now.
Okay.
I can't tell you, I can't, what's that?
Now, how long has the tax been being paid?
Well,
That has been
unfortunately,
another
the tax
question.
collector's not here to answer that question, but
Okay.
the township does have a policy for that to occur. So that's the answer to your question. I guess I would go back. Any of the other florists that you spoke to, do they have any kind of information that signifies how much business they've been losing from these pop-up sales? Because I'll tell you, I mean, look, I have reservations about the ordinance. I'm comfortable with the way it's drafted right now. I would not be comfortable at 2,000 feet. I'd be concerned about it becoming overly restrictive. But my other question is, or my other comment would be, I'm not sure, I've never bought flowers from a pop-up place. It just hasn't happened. So I'm not the perfect example. But it seems to me somebody doesn't decide that they're going to buy flowers from your place or from Penny's or from Kremps, and then they're driving there and all of a sudden they see a pop-up sales place and they just stop there. I mean, it seems to me that, I guess, maybe this is the way I'm thinking of it, is that it's more of a impulse buy than it is set out to go to a florist and they get diverted because they see a pop-up sale.
Commissioner Klein, may I ask you this? Why do they pinpoint the certain times of year that they do? We're in a business where we advertise heavily at a certain time of year. Mother's Day, Easter.
Oh, I understand why they're coming.
Oh, I absolutely do,
I understand
too.
why they're not popping up on
They're-
this Saturday coming up.
They're
because-
piggybacking on our advertising and our names and things out there. They're not dumb.
Understood. I
They're
guess my
absolutely
point
smart.
is, that's my impression. I have no idea whether it's a true impression or not, but I also am not giving any information that gives me any definitive idea that they are actually taking a magnitude of sales away from the
Then,
florist.
here's
Now,
the way-
it could possibly be the case. I just don't know.
Here's the way I would suggest we could try to find this out. Ban them for an entire 2-year period. Let us find out exactly how our sales go up.
Well, I think...
And at that point, we can give you our answer.
So,
We
Mr. Clark,
don't-
is that an issue? I mean, I know there's been problems in the municipal planning code about banning certain uses. I mean, is this one of those that you would have concerns about actually putting a blanket prohibition on?
I think, as we've indicated to the board previously, we do not believe that a complete and outright ban would be constitutional.
So our constitutional rights do not matter.
I don't think.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, pretty much it is, in my opinion, because...
Well, in your opinion, but that's
Exactly.
not what I said.
Yeah, I don't think it's a debate as to whether your Constitution or anybody else's, but I think that's an opinion by the solicitor who we, as a board, have hired to give us advice.
And I totally understand that. We have also asked many times, if you are collecting taxes, then you know exactly how much is being sold there. If these stands are going to continue to piggyback on the hard work of the brick-and-mortar businesses, be it the florists, be it the sports people, be it the food stations or whatever, they need to start paying us revenue for advertisement. Because that's the only way they're being drug into the area, and why they've positioned themselves across and around some of the most predominant florists in the area. Targeting is a nice suggestion there.
Well, or maybe the fact that the florists are in business centers and that's where people are going, whether that's where the people are driving through.
But again, smart way to target your person.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate it. I just,
Okay.
you understand,
I do
don't know if you
understand what you're
understand my
saying.
struggle, but that's my question.
And I've tried to answer truthfully, and what I
appreciate
think could happen if we, you want to check out something?
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Jones.
President Luker, I'd like to know from this, I'd like to know from the solicitor if a ban is not advisable, would a temporary 60, 90-day moratorium on any permits granted be something that would fall under the same category? And the only reason I ask is that if you had a specific holiday and you had that one temporary moratorium, then you may be able to do a pre and post examination so that the data that everybody is seeking could be achieved.
Again, Commissioner Jones, we do not believe that a total ban of what is a legitimate use would be constitutional.
Thank you.
Commissioner Spiegelman.
If I could ask a question of Ms. Schmidt, if that's okay. Obviously, I mean, I think everybody knows why, why such stands would pop up around the major holidays.
They do.
And I know you've said explicitly you feel as if these stands are geographically targeting you and the other florists that for whom you're the spokesperson. Do each of those other florists, Penny's, Kremps, In Bloom, et cetera, have they identified one or even more of these pop-up businesses specifically around them that they feel has been located there specifically to siphon business off of them? I'm just curious from your...
Yes, but unfortunately, the Kremps had a family graduation, and otherwise I will speak on behalf of them, and what I understand is they actually had a flower shop or pop-up stand removed from around by them, by the township.
By Upper Moreland,
Correct.
obviously, right.
So I'm not quite understanding why the precedents that we want to set here. Do you realize that by setting this precedent, you could be doing away with these stands across the county? You could wind up being heroes to a lot of people, and I'm not just talking the florists. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate your perspective on that.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Edie, stay up. It seems that the difference here is that the proposed ordinance is at 1,000 feet, and you're requesting 2,000 feet. Would a compromise be 1,500 feet, and could you live with that? If this board were to go with that.
Can I, just for a second?
Sidebar.
While you're doing that, can I...
Sidebar.
Commissioner Myers, mind if I jump in and ask the solicitor a question?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The Kremps is out of the township.
But Scott Kremp lives in the township and is very much
Understand that.
involved.
No, I appreciate that. Kremps, the actual business, is out of the township, but would they be, we couldn't impose this distance regulation from them because they're not actually in the township.
I believe the way the ordinance is written, it is, would only apply to those businesses located within the township.
So somebody could put one of these temporary sales right on the township border, which may be less than 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 feet to Kremps, and it doesn't make a difference.
The way the ordinance is written, it wouldn't apply for someone who's not in the township. It would only apply to businesses within the township.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? We have a representative here of the, there's a businessman here. Is it possible to find out why they have to sell flowers on the days that we have advertised for? We all know the answer to that, but could they do it another time, another weekend? Is it possible to move them onto another weekend? Stay away from Mother's Day, stay away from stay away from Easter, Mother's Day?
I think that's problematic also.
Okay. So do you understand why I know that they're piggybacking on our hard labor? We work all year long for those holidays, where this is our biggest time to bring in revenue so that we can make it through the summer. The floral industry through the summer is very quiet, unless you are out there targeting weddings and bat mitzvahs and parties and things like that. We need that revenue to pay our taxes through the summer.
I don't think, Mr. President, I don't think we answered.
The 1,500 feet would be the minimum that we would go, the minimum.
But you could live with that.
If we have to, we prefer the 2,000 feet. The minimum would be the 1,500. And I'm actually going with your planning commission that they really wanted the 2,000.
No, I understand. I was at the Planning Commission, and that's absolutely correct. But I'm seeing the board and the businesses, the difference, and I'm always a big one on compromising and making everybody a little bit happy, maybe a little bit unhappy, but a little bit happy.
I think if we have to live with the 1,500 feet, that would be the minimum that we would
I asked the solicitor, would you have to re-advertise for that?
Yes, we would.
Commissioner Sapone, you had a question?
I would definitely be in support of the 1,500 to 2,000, and the reason being, our brick and mortar businesses that are here, our florists or whoever, okay, they pay taxes year-round, okay? They have to produce their tax return to the township. It's documented. These pop-up tents, they can make $1,000 a day, come in here and say, here's $20, we only made $100. I have a major problem with that, And why? I'll give you an example. There's a pop-up tent right near Bradfield Easton Road. So if you move it up another 500 feet away from her establishment, what's the problem with that? So why would they fight? Well, we're not going to move from Bradfield and Easton Road. We want to stay right there. Why? Because her place is right across the street? Go with the 1,500 feet, move it up another 500 feet. I don't see an issue with that at all.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Schreiber.
When we had this discussion before, Mike, we had a number of amount of feet, and I don't know what that was, that if we put that in place, it would essentially keep, it would be like we kept them out totally. Do you know what that amount of feet is?
No, I don't. But what you have to be careful of, that whenever you are doing anything with a dimensional prohibition, if the dimensional prohibition has the effect of being a complete and total ban, then it's not going to survive a challenge. I cannot imagine that in a township as large as Abington, that going up to 1,500 feet is going to, there are not that many florists that it's going to create a complete and total ban within the township. So I don't think that 1,500 feet would be that prohibition. Once you start getting up in those different numbers, we'd have to go back, Mr. Mateo, Mr. Penical, and I, and start mapping out where it would be. But I cannot imagine that 1,500 would be that ban.
I have another question, too. So, we've just been talking about the florists, and I know that Edie had also brought up things like the sports and different other things. But if we just looked at flowers, there's other kinds of businesses that sell, like, supermarkets have flowers or whatever. So would it be 1,500 from any place, or 1,000 or 2,000, whatever number it is, from any place that sells?
It is seasonal, the ban is 1,000 feet of any structure wherein the primary use of the building, storefront, or structure is the sale of such articles, equipment, and merchandise. So if you go within 1,500 feet of a supermarket, it's not going to apply to you because the primary purpose of the supermarket is groceries and not flowers.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Myers, you have something?
No, I'll wait till after.
Name and address for the record, please.
Laura Lehman, 1431, and to assure you, I am always late wherever I'm going on Mother's Day and every other time of the year. And so when they put out on the corner of the busy intersection a pop-up tent, I may not have time to make the turn to go to the florist that would give me the nicer arrangement. And so it definitely, I don't think anybody here really can say that they don't think that it takes away from them. So that's number one. And number two, I hope when you vote you will hold up your hands, because I'd like to see the hands held up of the commissioners that are not supporting Abington businesses and are supporting people from outside to come in and make money against these brick-and-mortar businesses. We pay for the blight and the decline. I have sat through meeting after meeting where one benefit after another was given for the blighted businesses. And I am paying from my pocket to landscape business districts because they need our help to survive. This is that help. Help these brick-and-mortar businesses.
Thank you. Any other comments? Name and address for the record.
Victor B. Crevens, 3505 Westmoreland Road. I'm in favor of this ordinance to restrict these, I don't know what you want to call them, temporary businesses that sell flowers specifically, but I would like you to include two other things into the ordinance that I think are also important. One is that they are required to have a sales tax license that is on display, And you can't say that the price of the flowers includes the sales tax. It must be itemized by law. And secondly, they should also have some sort of liability insurance. If, God forbid, somebody has trips and falls, they need to have some sort of insurance coverage. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Again, name and address. Before you come up, sir, I just want to remind everyone that we do have a 3-minute time requirement on your...
I'll be about 30
speaking.
seconds.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Thank you,
President. Members of the board, John Fox, 2115 Guernsey, Ward 11. I just wanted to support the comments that Edie made and the others, that this 1,500 feet would strike the right balance between the storekeepers who have the established businesses in Abington and those who want to have the temporary business, and I think that would be the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Now, I think Commissioner Markman asked a question, Mr. Solicitor, that we would have to re-advertise if we considered the 1,500 feet.
If the majority of the 14 of you want to see the ordinance amended to 1,500 feet pursuant to the Abington Township Code, and also in an abundance of caution, it would need to be re-advertised.
So we would make a motion to re-advertise the ordinance at 1,500 feet and see if that survives.
Well, it would be to make a motion, exactly. In essence, what you would be doing would be making a motion to amend at 1,500 feet, and if that passes, then it needs to be re-advertised.
And do we do that after the public hearing's closed, or doesn't it matter?
You have no more speakers. You would be able to close the hearing and then take a vote and do it that way.
Then I would make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify one point. I agree with this ordinance in concept, specifically because of the point raised by Commissioner Zappone, that there should be a business that comes in that has to face a level of accountability and pay taxes and the same rules of the game that others are forced to play by. Where I do have a slight problem is not in the ordinance, but in some of the reasoning, that if we start to say, and with all due respect, if somebody figures out how to piggyback off of another business's advertising from that other business, it may be looked at as a bad thing. Other people may look at that as smart business. So I want to kind of make sure that we're not saying to people that we're going to legislate business practices that may be efficient for some, and that's my point. And I get exactly where you're coming from, but I do believe that you shouldn't be penalized if you're paying taxes and others can come in and not play by any of those rules.
No.
Just to close the hearing.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. President.
Commissioner Farron?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question. We've been banding about 1,500 and 2,000 up here on the board, and I don't know if we have any kind of consensus on which way to start, if we're going to go forward with the next motion of changing this from 1,000. Are we going to go to 1,500, or are we going to go to 2,000?
I'd like to respond. I'd make a motion to amend it to 1,500 and advertise it at 1,500.
Second.
But if I understood...
Okay, the motion is going to be a motion to amend it to 1,500 feet. If that passes, then we'll need another motion to advertise the amended ordinance.
But we needed to close the hearing first.
Yeah, we got a little out of order. We had a motion on the table to close the hearing. I don't know if it was seconded.
It was seconded.
It's seconded, so we need a motion to close the hearing.
Need to vote on the close the hearing.
Motion to
And I'll
close the
make-
hearing.
we do have a motion to close the hearing. Second?
Second.
Okay, at this time, I'll close the hearing and open the floor to a motion to amend the original motion, or...
So I make a motion to amend the ordinance to replace the 1,000 square feet with 1,500 square feet.
Second. Linear.
Make a motion.
Linear.
Linear feet, I'm sorry.
So the motion is to... I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
To go to 1,500.
To amend to 1,500 linear feet.
Linear feet from 1,000 linear feet to 1,500 linear feet.
And was there a second?
There was plenty of seconds.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Now, if we could have a motion to re-advertise the amended ordinance.
Motion to re-advertise the amended ordinance.
Second.
What do we need?
It's been moved and seconded to re-advertise the amended motion.
For you.
Amended ordinance, yeah.
I'm sorry, question?
Do we have to specify a date? When that ordinance, for when that hearing will
No, I
happen?
think we're going to have to send it back to the planning commission.
Okay, so we have a
we're
little
gonna-
bit of time here.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll go back to the planning commission. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So there is a motion on the floor to amend,
No, to re-advertise.
to re-advertise.
And
I'm
it's
sorry.
been seconded.
To re-advertise.
To re-advertise the amended ordinance.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, I guess I'm opposed, because I still think it should be 2,000.
The motion, there are two in opposition? One?
I guess so, because I think it should be 2,000.
One? Okay, one. So the motion passes.
Can I ask another question, though, now that this is already done?
Commissioner
Is there a
Gillespie.
way, is there a way that we can have some way of seeing how much these people bring in? I mean, because, as was said before, there's a lot of cash deals going on. How can we, since the other folks, the brick and mortar people, are paying taxes, is there any way to...
Well, the only way to do that would actually, when they come in and pay the taxes, would be to audit, for our...
Like if they're giving you, $50.
So if you have somebody who comes in every holiday and does it, we could task the township with auditing them to see
Okay.
exactly what their sales are, and you can just do it when you feel it's appropriate.
Okay, that's good, Michael.
Which, as some others pointed out, is the same, that's the same thing with a lot of cash-based or cash-heavy brick-and-mortar businesses, too. Basically, the same principle applies.
I don't know too many of them. I know one big one.
I pay cash for everything.
Okay,
Make
one last comment.
I would be cautious about making a statement that we want them to audit these pop-ups specifically. I mean, isn't the audit process supposed to be based on some level of scrutiny by the tax office and not specific to a certain use or person or business, just based on who they are?
That is correct.
So I would be cautious about actually making that statement, I think. So, thank you.
Okay. All right, at this point, I'll turn it back to Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, President Luker. Next is CE2, ordinance number 2095, ordinance to amend PB, Planned Business District, adding paragraph 32, student apartment housing use H1. This is for information that a public hearing is set for Wednesday, June 24th, 2015, at 7 o'clock p.m. on ordinance number 2095. The purpose of the hearing is to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for student apartment housing in the PB Planned Business District. Next, we have CE3. This is ordinance number 3000, ordinance to amend Chapter 98, Housing Standards, Section 98-2A, Amendments to Standards. This is a motion to adopt ordinance number 3000 to amend Chapter 98, Housing Standards, Section 98-2A, Amendments to Standards, storage, parking, abandonment, or keeping of any licensed or unlicensed motor vehicle, watercraft, trailer, or any parts shall not be permitted on any lawn, grass area. And I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners?
Mr. President.
Commissioner Klein.
I guess some of us have received emails. This doesn't include bicycles, canoes, kayaks.
Correct.
So on and so forth.
Correct.
Big wheels.
No, it is meant for motor vehicles as defined in our ordinance, which is exactly what everybody thinks of when they think of a motor vehicle. As I was explaining to Commissioner Klein earlier today, and I explained to some of the other board members, while the Pennsylvania Vehicle Code lists bicycles in the vehicle code, they do that because they want all bicyclists to obey the rules of the road. But our ordinance does not include bicycles as motor vehicles, and since this ordinance would be enforced as a property maintenance matter and not a vehicle code matter, the definition that would control would be the one in our code, which does not make a bicycle a ride-on lawnmower, a Barbie car, or any of those things a vehicle which would get you in violation of this ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gillespie.
Wouldn't this, thank you, wouldn't this be based on, really on complaints? I mean, it's not like the township's going out looking at everybody's yard to see if they have a canoe and a boat and it would be complaint-driven, correct?
I believe as Mr. Mateo may have indicated at a prior meeting, but also as many code enforcement matters are, they are basically complaint-driven.
Just complaint.
Right. It's a big township for our code department to be driving around looking for these things.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple points of clarification. I think Lauren sent an updated rewriting of the ordinance as written, and the last line was changed, if I understand it correctly, from shall not be permitted on any lawn, grass, or right-of-way area to lawn or grass area, period.
Correct. We eliminated the right-of-way.
Okay. So that would include front, backyard, side yards?
For the most part, you're probably only going to have right-of-way in your front yard.
Right.
The part that is adjacent to the public street. So by eliminating that, for someone who needs to pull a little bit off the street and has the right two tires of up on the grass, it wouldn't apply to them in that instance.
Commissioner, that's more for where, if I may?
Sure.
That's for people that do not have curb or gutters. Okay, so
Right.
and that's what we're trying to eliminate, so it should come up a little bit on your own grass right there by the street.
Right.
A lot of, especially on the east side of town, a lot of our properties go right to the street. So
Right.
that's why we didn't want to put them in a jeopardy.
And I think that was what Commissioner Myers had brought up at the meeting, so that's fine.
And also Commissioner Klein.
And Commissioner Klein, sorry, I missed that part. My question was more of if I wanted to store a boat in my backyard, this would prohibit that.
If you were on the grass, this would prohibit that. Or on the lawn, this would prohibit that. That is correct.
Right. So, because I had a chance, I'm sorry I wasn't here last week, and I apologize, but I did have a chance to watch the meeting, and there were a couple, that was one of the questions I had, is that if this pretty much is kind of, I think, what Commissioner's opponent mentioned, and maybe Commissioner Spiegelman, some of the feedback I'm getting is the feeling is that we're encroaching too much into people's homeowner rights, that if they want to store their small fishing boat on their backyard, out of line of sight, it's not visible, who are we to go in and say in their property they can't store another piece of their property? I watched the presentation that Mr. Mateo had put forward, and a lot of the pictures there. Some of them I think fit perfectly into what I think the intention of this ordinance is to prevent some of what is considered blight. I think, again, Commissioner Myers talked about, and was echoed by other commissioners, the concern with homeowner property values and what that would do to the township. I think I'm a little uncomfortable, and this is probably going to get me in trouble with one or two of my constituents who are very much in favor of this on the whole, but I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact that we're going to encroach that much into people's rights and to decide what they can and cannot put on their property. And the second point of clarification, there was a wording, and if my wording is wrong, I'll direct this to the solicitor, that residential driveways may be left in stone if desired, provided at least 10 feet paved area exists behind the property line which the driveway intersects. So does that mean on the other side of the driveway, if I have stone or gravel that's not impervious, I could store my XYZ vehicle there?
Well, first of all, stone and gravel are impervious.
Pervious. Pervious, not impervious.
Excuse me, they're impervious.
No, they're impervious.
No, okay, we'll argue over a stormwater issue. But the way the ordinance is written, it contemplates that if you want to leave your driveway in stone or gravel, there has to be a paved portion of it on the side of the property line before you hit the stone or the gravel portion of it.
Okay, so is that a yes, basically?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's impervious.
Great, for that. Thank
Commissioner
you.
Jones.
So, again, and I think part of the problem here is, and the majority of emails I've gotten from residents are supportive. The problem here is I have gotten a few that would create a hardship. I think that it's not always a good idea to pass an ordinance for a small group of people just because it's a benefit to the township. I think it's always a bad idea not to pass an ordinance for an even smaller group of people. But that said, what happens if I have a hardship? What happens if I am somebody who for 20 years has been a perfectly manicured lawn and I have a boat, as you mentioned, or a camper that I would like to keep? Is there any way that hardship? What if I'm a resident who needs to pull in every now and then and kind of pull onto my grass sometimes because I live on a busy street, and if I pull out, I have a problem? So I'm concerned about the hardship, but again, my bigger concern is that if we continue and let this become a blight on the township, what's going to be happening 5 years from now? So I support this ordinance with the reservation of what happens to those few people that may really be hurt by this. How can we help them? Anybody can answer.
Commissioner Gillespie.
That's what I was asking Mr. Mateo. I thought it would be complaint-driven and not everybody's, it started out just because people were parking on their front lawn, pulling up to the door, and it's kind of gotten out of hand here.
So if that is the case, I'm sorry.
But I thought it was complaint-driven, and we had nothing because people were pulling up onto their front lawn. And I just can't imagine that code enforcement, with the few people they have, are going to be out there, going into people's backyards without somebody complaining.
Somebody complains, and then inspect it, and then we'll go over there. If I may, as you know, Commissioner, we'll work with people. If there is a situation where it is a definite hardship and something we will work with, we do. And you know my staff the way they are, and they will work with people, okay? I have two of them here tonight, and they will contest that. I think that what we're looking at, and were you here last week, so you saw the photos?
I was here last week for Monday, yes, I was. I saw the photos. Nice job.
And that was only, what did we show you, 40 out of maybe 100 photos that we have throughout the township. And as you heard, one of the commissioners criticized me because I showed too many. This is what's out there, and this is what's reality. We're looking at property maintenance. You have people that park and store their cars on there and do not get the grass cut around the vehicles. That's what we're looking at. You saw one person who, with a fire hydrant in front of their home, so they parked behind the fire hydrant because they're not allowed to park legally in front of the fire hydrant. So let's just pull in the grass, and the fire hydrant's right there, and I showed you that photograph. I think that what you're looking at, you see the ruts in the photos that I showed you, sir, look, let's work. If you need to put additional macadam or stone in to accommodate those vehicles, we will work with people, okay? We're just trying to, again, property maintenance, and that's what we're looking at.
Mr. Mateo, I have a quick question.
Sir, yes.
All those photos that you showed were as a result of, to Commissioner Gillespie's point, complaint-driven, so you went to a certain location as a result of being called by a resident, correct?
That is correct.
And that resulted in the pictures being taken?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Klein.
Several of them were, that I saw. And I have others I could show you on my phone today that did. And one property in particular, we have a situation where we are going to court because there's 14 vehicles on someone's property. Okay, so we have, and this is what we're dealing with, and of course he got away, we're going to court.
So for clarification, you're not riding around just arbitrarily looking for,
We
okay.
did that in
Thank you. Commissioner Klein and then Commissioner Jones.
You want to go ahead?
I can wait.
Okay. So as I read the ordinance, there's really not latitude in here. There's no way of accommodating or anything. If somebody makes a complaint, I understand it's complaint-driven, and the code enforcement department's not going around looking for these things, but if somebody makes a complaint and somebody claims that they have some type of hardship, there's nothing in this ordinance that gives us the ability to find a way around it, or, is that correct?
You're correct.
So, because that's my point, is to Commissioner Jones's point, we really don't have this is not in the zoning ordinance, so it's not like they can go to the zoning board and try to get variance or something. And, if they want to add impervious coverage or if they want to add stoning, they have to actually come in for permits for that and meet the zoning requirements for that. Is that correct?
They will have to comply with our code regarding building coverage and impervious surface, and yes.
My last thing is, have we given any thought to what Commissioner Farron talked about and just limiting this to vehicles and not boats, stuff like that.
Road vehicles.
I haven't given it any thought because I don't make policy. I do what
I know.
I draft what I'm asked to
I guess
draft.
I'm looking at you, I would think it was a general question. Yes, I'm sorry. So.
Commissioner Spiegelman?
A couple of questions and requests from Mr. Mateo, if I can indulge in his kindness. I know there were some folks who asked if Director Mateo could kindly give just a quick overview or reminder of the fact that this would not apply to people who are having parties, special events, something like that, especially folks who have small driveways, no street parking. If you could, I know, not to go through your whole presentation again, but a little reminder of that, and then I actually have a question for you.
Okay. And I thank you, Commissioner. As I stated it last week, and we are not going after somebody that, look, if you're going to have a party, and especially this month is about the best time when you have graduation parties and religious holidays or whatever, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, a wedding, you might have something with a reception at your home. We'll work with people. I had last week, which I indicated, my neighbor across the street had LaSalle High School, and they had over 100 people, and they were parking, and we made accommodations. Everybody worked together. We will do that. You know that. Even with the Chief Kelly indicated the same thing. We'll work together, and we work very closely with community policing and that type of thing. We're not out there to cause additional problems. We're looking at the ones that are continually making problems with their own property. Again, it's property maintenance issues and what it looks like. That's what we're trying to do. We'll work with people. And I go to meetings with every one of you, a civic meeting or a neighborhood meeting, and we discuss these things, except for Steve Klein, because you know how he is. But everybody else, and I always take all of you out for road trips, and we always do this type of thing, except for Commissioner Klein. But we will work with people.
Okay, on the heels of your...
You did. I appreciate that overview.
Last week in the public meeting.
And I had another question. Obviously, the case with the person with 14 cars, if it's going to court, safe to say that was a pretty hostile reaction.
Well,
safe to say.
These vehicles that I'm talking about are not licensed and or inspected. Also, in our codes, they must be. Okay? Right. So we have a zoning code that says that any vehicle on your property must be legally licensed and inspected. Okay? Also, because we work, and if it's on the street, Al Freed, Chris Posey, Community Policing help us out with that. And sometimes what happens, after they go and ticket, then the people put it on the property.
Right.
Just driving behind that. You had the one incident that the gentleman drove all the way around and parked behind his patio underneath there. It's the one photograph. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw all the photographs. There were a lot of them.
And you criticized
There
me
were two
for
of those.
Is that good?
Yes, there were two of those.
If I could just the one follow-up question. With the exception of that very hostile 14 vehicle case, in any of these other cases, did anybody, and I'm not saying this onus would be on you or your staff, but did anyone ascertain by actually talking to these homeowners with the cars parked on the lawn, like, why are you parking on the lawn, or would you mind moving it? I mean, just thinking of that in terms before we actually pass legislation. I'm honest. I'm really just curious. Has that come up?
We do.
Did anyone give an answer? Like, as Commissioner Jones referenced, I have a hardship.
Until I have something that I can cover here, and that's what we're doing. Okay? We talk to them. I had a situation, I believe, in that young man's ward right there. People do not wish to go behind or go out the backyard because they have to move their other cars, so they drive right out onto Mount Carmel Avenue and make some runs on that, if you notice that. Correct? Thank you.
Why don't I hold the question for a second? Chief Kelly, you wanted to comment, I think, on the heels of what Larry mentioned?
Yes, Mr. President, the comment I was going to make goes right into that issue. The police department provides layoffs, of course, on a temporary basis or on an occasional basis for a lot of parking type of issues, and that certainly would apply to those type of things. Many of those cases, the police department will be involved because it happens in the evenings or on weekends, and we've already talked about that and worked with Larry, of course, on that. And so on an occasional basis, if they contact and let us know, obviously, we would give them a waiver on that.
Okay, I think Commissioner Gillespie and then Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jones, I'm sorry.
I won't say anything, Commissioner Spiegelman, but I just think that part of this issue, when you say it's complaint-driven, it may sound corny, but someone earlier referenced the signs behind us. A lot of this has to do with neighbors being good neighbors. So if I take care of my property and I have something on my property, then we would hope that neighbors would work with each other. If I've got 4 cars on my property and I'm doing work on them and they look like a garage and it's all of these other things and it's really going to hurt property values, then I'm probably not being a good neighbor. So unfortunately, we need ordinances because sometimes neighbors aren't always great neighbors or we wouldn't have fence companies. So I get what you're saying, but just wanted to make sure those with a hardship have somewhere to go.
Actually, that's where I was going, property value. It's, if you have an acre, nobody notices. But when you live in Glenside, in our area is great areas to live, but we have smaller properties. So we're certainly affected by what our neighbors are going to do. And we would hope, as you said, Larry, that they think about their neighbors and not park their car on the lawn. That's the main goal here.
Chief Kelly, you had another comment?
Yes, Mr. President. Obviously, we'll apply the ordinance the way the board wants it applied. But I just want to tell you that originally we brought this up to code enforcement several years ago because of the ones that were parked on the lawns in the front of the house. We really have no concerns about what they're doing in the back. Whatever you set up for that is fine. But in the front of the house, it actually, in many cases, it looked terrible. And officers were coming to us that were working their beats and trying to make things, get rid of graffiti and get rid of problem areas and getting rid of things that look like blight, and they wanted to do something about that. So I just throw that out there to the board so that you give us the guidance and direction that you want on that. We'll follow the direction of the board on that, obviously, but we think that in some cases, even without a complaint, an officer driving down the street and sees a situation on the front lawn that looks like heck, I would think we would want them to investigate that and follow up on that, as they're doing with a lot of issues like that, to make the neighborhoods better neighborhoods. But again, we'll follow the board's direction, but we will need the board's direction on that. We're talking only about the front lawn, and within sight from the street, basically, is what we're talking about.
Commissioner Farron first, and then Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, President Luker. So to that end, and if I missed this, I apologize. Can we just make it the front lawns? Does it have to be the entire property?
You can do whatever you'd like with that regard. If you want to limit the prohibition only to front yards, you can do that if you would like to. Now, there has to be, again, you're going to have to make some other changes in other portions of your code, because one of the things that when you look at our code in its entirety, this ban already exists. When you look at the various codes, when you look at our zoning code and our land development code, this ban already exists, because you're only allowed to park on parking spaces. Parking spaces must be paved. There are certain requirements. So when you're pulling onto your grass, you're in violation of certain other portions of the code. What this ordinance is doing is it is simplifying it, codifying it, providing a notice provision regarding the penalties. So if the board were to choose tonight not to adopt this and to limit it only to the front yard, then we'd need to go back in and make some other changes to other parts of our code, which would allow parking on unpaved areas on other areas other than the front yard. It can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done. I just want to let you know that it's not as simple as just saying front yard, because we need to clean up other portions of our ordinance, some of which are being cleaned up now in the zoning code rewrite.
So if this is, if I may, I'm sorry. So if this is already basically in our zoning, in our other parts of the code where this is basically there, why do we need this besides the notification?
Well, what you have right now is a series of connect the dots when you're seeing that this is banned, because there's nothing in any of our codes that says outright that this is banned, but when you look at our subdivision and land development ordinance, you look at our zoning code, and you look at our property maintenance code, and you take various sections of them and you look at them together, there's a ban on this already. So what this ordinance is doing, and when it was first suggested to us, we looked at this and said, this is just a matter of making this a clearer ban or a clearer prohibition so that everyone knows what they're facing. Putting it under more of the property maintenance section, it makes it easier with regards to notification, notices of violation, and going to hearings. And I'll also say this, Commissioner Farron, it's not, again, you have to sort of connect the dots to find where these other sections ban this. So this just makes it clearer.
But we still have teeth as a township if this doesn't go through for Mr. Mateo or his staff to go out, or Chief Kelly and his officers to go out and basically enforce essentially this.
Right. And but then it's going to be enforced under the zoning code and not under the property maintenance code, and then we're going to be sending people to zoning, and it gets very cumbersome, very complicated for people, very complicated for Mr. Mateo's department, very complicated for Mr. Penical, very complicated for Chief Kelly and his officers. This simplifies it, makes it clearer and more straightforward.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to let Commissioner Schreiber jump in.
This is more of a problem in the areas of the township where the houses are close together. The problem with limiting it to the front yard, if we were to do that, because that is where it looks the worst, of course, but if it's going to be complaint-driven, it tends to be the neighbors who are seeing the backyard or the side yard that are going to be the ones that complain. I don't really have a problem if somebody has a boat and they take it out and they store it in the backyard. I think that's fine. But I think the only time I've ever had a complaint, actually, that Larry came out for was a boat that was sort of abandoned in somebody's backyard. Is that right? And so I don't know if there's a way we can regulate that that they do leave the backyard and they're not just becoming, fixtures in the backyard with plants growing out of them and they never move. So, which is what happened and that was in the backyard. So you wouldn't have seen it from the front.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
I think would it make sense if there was any type of exemption to that for any, not in the front yard, but any non-motorized camper or any trailer designed to either be pulled by a motor vehicle or to carry a watercraft camper or motor vehicle to park in the rear or side yard, provided that that vehicle is in good working condition and has appropriate licensure and registration?
Well, we have that, and Mark is still here. He can attest. There's a certain limit under our zoning code that you can have trucks or trailers or boats on your property. There is a certain limit. We're asking, anything over that 25-foot limit should be housed. And we already have that in our zoning code. Okay?
But it would seem that this, and maybe this, Mr. President, the solicitor can answer, it would seem that in some way this would go against that because it specifically mentions boats.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
So, could you say what you said, and then I'll say what I said?
There's certain things that you can have on your property, but we're not.
Thanks.
There's certain things. Am I not speaking? Is this thing working?
It was for Larry.
It was me.
Okay.
The good-looking Larry.
I understand. The good-looking Larry. Yes. That there are certain. Is Mark here? Mark, they come up here to the mic. There's Mark knows this better than I do on certain sizes and stuff under our R1 district for storage of vehicles, trucks, and things.
Yeah, it's actually in the accessory supplemental district of each of the residential districts. You can store any recreational vehicle, which includes boats, trailers, up to 25 feet, and that's in all 4 of our residential districts. The limitation on that is you can store them on your property, but you still have to maintain 2 additional off-street parking spaces. And again, you'll find that in the supplemental district of the R1 district, and then it's carried forward as a note through R2, 3, and 4.
So would I be allowed to store that on the grass in my backyard?
Currently, right now, yes.
And with passage of this ordinance is my question.
No.
No.
This would supersede the zoning ordinance.
That would supersede this. So I think that would be to the point that Commissioner Schreiber made then, that if it's okay to store one of those boats on my property and I have it in the backyard where nobody sees it, would that exemption take care of it? a trailer.
That was
Is there any kind of like time limit on that? I mean, can it sit there though for years?
No, Commissioner, no matter what you store on your property, it still has to be licensed, registered, and
Yeah.
insured. So,
You were talking a different situation.
Right.
And again, it's located in two separate ordinances. One is a property maintenance ordinance where you find the licensing requirements for storage of abandoned vehicles, and then in the zoning ordinance is where you find the length limitations.
But even if it is in good working order, but you could never use it and just keep it in your backyard forever, essentially, right now?
I mean, boats are still required to be registered, so are
You
trailers.
have to take it out once a
You got to
year
take it out and get it.
and stick it back.
You will have to take it out at some point to have it inspected.
Okay.
Can I make one comment? So let's think about this. You're living in a house, your neighbor parks lots of cars in their front yard. Do you want the township to be able to get rid of those cars?
Yep.
My opinion is the majority of the people that live in this township, the vast majority, do not want people, their neighbors, parking their cars on their yards. I mean, it's really not that complicated. I mean, I understand there are going to be some objectors. I don't want my neighbor parking cars on their yard. I don't think any of my constituents want, now there may be an exception, but the majority of my constituents don't want people parking their cars on their yard. So I fully support this ordinance.
Commissioner Myers, you had a question?
Thank you, and thank you. I also support this ordinance because I find many of the phone calls that I get about property maintenance is when someone is going to sell their home and their neighbor's yard or situation is affecting their ability to sell their home. And I know that some people are saying that, we have property rights, and of course we do. But you could use that argument for just about every maintenance ordinance that we have. I know this is wrong, but you're required to mow your lawn. Everyone has to mow their lawn. There's a standard. This is a municipality, a suburban township that really takes great pride in its property maintenance. And I don't want my neighbor on either side or in the neighborhood to really be allowed to do anything that will affect the value of my home, the beauty of the neighborhood. And when you park a car on a yard, especially the front yard, it is ugly.
Mr. President.
Commissioner Spiegelman, and then Commissioner Jones.
I think I've heard a lot of, maybe some of the similar resident arguments and opinions that Commissioner Farron has heard. Like a lot of the commissioners from whom many of these complaints are coming, in Ward 11, we tend to be R3 and R4 zoning. I'm fortunate, as I mentioned in committees, that haven't really received a lot of these complaints. Ultimately, following up on what Commissioners Markman and Myers said, the real broader philosophical question before us here is this just a small logical extension of the tools that we already give Director Mateo and his team to maintain aesthetic quality of living? Things like mowing the lawn, things like an ordinance that we passed a year and a half ago, I believe, regarding dumpsters and pods and other storage units in people's driveways for excessive amounts of time. Or is this a huge leap from the powers that Director Mateo already has to a real encroachment on property rights? And I respect both sides of the issue, but where I tend to fall is that this is, as Commissioner Markman said, a rather simple matter, not unlike Commissioner Myers' example of mowing the lawn or the example I gave of dumpsters in the driveway.
Commissioner Jones?
Thank you. I hear exactly what you're saying. I just want to be clear. And to what Commissioner Myers said on the last discussion, at the end of the day, this makes sense to me. I agree. Nobody wants to see this. It lowers property values. The vast majority of Abington residents are hurt by cars being parked all over the place. And I'm also going to be quite open and honest and explain that some of those pictures on that presentation were in Ward 3 because people called up and had a problem, and I understand what they're dealing with. My only question is that if we know we're going to hurt some people, if by way of being forward-thinking and saying if there's a way to put a carve-out for people that are actually doing the right thing but are putting a trailer that they use in their backyard, then we can do that. If that's unable to be done, then I guess some people are going to be hurt, but I think we need to understand that moving forward. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but I know that's not the world we live in. I really don't want to see people parking their cars all over the lawn, and also, for full disclosure, not only were there complaints for a property, but a property right around the corner from my house that has 6 or 7 cars. They've taken 2 or 3 away, but even when your kids start saying things like, "Daddy, you know, what kind of business is that? Are they a used car lot?" I mean, come on. So I understand that, but if we could be sensible and look at an exemption, that would make sense to me. And I think the one that I read made a lot of sense.
Okay, Commissioner Klein.
Yeah, I just wanted to clear one thing up. There's not a avenue for relief or working with anybody. I know it's been said here, but if the ordinance is passed, somebody complains, the township goes out and indeed clarifies that they are in violation of the ordinance, the township needs to act upon them. It's not like they can go out and they're going to have a conversation with them and they can just make it work out and they're going to continue to park their vehicles on those lawns. If they're in violation, they're in violation. I mean, by putting it in an ordinance, we don't have that ability to, regardless of whether the board sits up here and says to you, well, you know, just take it easy on these people. And, you know, it's in an ordinance and that's what you have to. Am I reading that correctly?
You are reading that correctly, and also I think it's important for me to say, and I don't hate disagreeing with Commissioner Jones, but if you carve out an exemption or an exception for a property maintenance issue, it's going to be difficult to do because you are not dealing with the individual, you are dealing with a property. And again, Commissioner Myers mentioned about mowing your lawn. It would almost be like saying anyone over a certain age is not required to mow their lawn. Their grass can grow as high as they want. That's not something you can do or should do with a property maintenance issue. Carving out an exemption is going to be very difficult with this, even if you call it a hardship, because you're trying to maintain property. So for the people on either side, it doesn't matter if that person has a hardship or not. It's still a property maintenance issue. So I don't want to give anyone the idea that that's easily done.
We're trying to work it out for one person as opposed to another person.
Point taken, but with all due respect, the exemption I was talking about, and it is my verbiage that was incorrect to call it a carve-out. What I was speaking specifically about is to say that if I have a non-motorized camper, boat that's properly registered, yada, 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 as read before, then that could be parked in the rear, not the front lawn. Now, with that would not be the type of carve-out you're talking about. That is something that we could put in a property maintenance code that would pass muster.
You probably would be able to make some of those exceptions regarding what can be parked where, but again, it goes back to the original issue that it's a property maintenance issue, and if you're attempting to combat a problem, you're going to have to look at other sections of the code. So we may be coming back to you frequently over the next several months, having to tweak various aspects of the code to deal with these exemptions. And I would also say for those who are opposed to this ordinance and who may think to challenge it in court, you're giving them their opening line of their argument.
If it's not a simple fix, then I definitely withdraw that suggestion.
All right, I think we've gotten all the questions from commissioners. Any from staff? Any from residents? Name and address, and don't forget our...
Laura Lehman, this issue clearly is not vetted. You just vetted this tonight with a room full of people that were never asked if they would like to speak. Many of them were here at the beginning of the meeting, and we have a rule where residents are allowed to speak at the beginning of the meeting so they don't have to sit through 2 or 3 or more hearings. We have another hearing coming up. Okay, and some of this discussion was done almost in complete disrespect, seeing that there are people here waiting and having the same things said over and over again, instead of somebody saying, this is not where we vet these issues, this should go back to committee. Clearly, this is not. So clearly, this is not the place for this. Please have respect for all these people, and immediately when you put this issue to bed, would you please ask the audience if anyone wanted to speak at the beginning of the meeting, where they have a right to speak if they know it? Thank you.
The speaker is incorrect. That is not our policy and procedure during these meetings. General public comment is at the end of the meeting. You speak on specific agenda items when that agenda item is called.
But not only that, but not only that, I mean, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're out of order. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Next gentleman, Mrs. Lehman, thank you. Name and address, please.
Nicholas Mattiacci, 811 Township Line Road, Elkins Park, PA 19027. I'd like to thank President Luker for throwing this birthday party for me tonight. It is my 35th birthday today, and I'm here just to raise a couple of points. I don't necessarily rise in opposition or support for this particular ordinance, but I do have some reservation with it. Where I live on Township Line Road, it is a very busy street, no street parking. I have a narrow driveway. A lot of times, my wife and I have to park one behind the other. We regularly use a small little patch of grass in front of our house, which is blocked by trees and bushes and such, for a turnaround. Or, to make it easier, if she's leaving early, I'll leave it there overnight. If I were not allowed to do that anymore, I would then be, let's say, blocking her in, backing out on Township Line Road or 73, which is a very busy street. It's already difficult enough as it is without allowing for a turnaround. Now, I know the ordinance would allow for, or there are zoning requirements that may allow me to put stone down or gravel or to pave it, and that's fine. But if I do that, is that resolving the problem? Or why do I need to do that if I'm doing it anyway? The issue with regard to the boats, I don't have a boat. I always thought they were just holes you throw water in. But a lot of people in this township do. To the extent that there are requirements that boats be maintained street legal, it's not necessarily the boats themselves, but the trailers. I got to imagine that there's going to be more cause for concern after, when residents who own boats are not going to be able to leave them in their driveway because they need to put their cars there, and a lot of these boats are going to end up on the street, which means less parking for the residents in each of your communities. And just to reiterate a point that was said, with regard, and this goes directly to reference with Commissioner Klein had said, I'm uncomfortable with an ordinance that is passed with an expectation that it's law, but don't worry, we'll work with you if there's any issues. I mean, if it's going to be a law, it's going to be a law. So to the extent that there's complaints, somebody from the zoning or ordinance committee goes out and has a conversation with the residents with regard to this, I don't see how it can be selectively enforced that way. And lastly, if a law similar to this already exists, I just find this to be duplicative. Thank you. I'm going to go have my birthday cake now.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Nick.
Any other comments from the public? Name and address, please.
Michael Curtis, Senior, 1137 Tyson Avenue. And some of the members of the board here knows that I have two properties adjacent to each other. And if you're looking at the house, I've got a good-sized side yard. My family's large. We have potluck dinner maybe twice a month on a Friday. There's anywhere between 8 to approximately 20 cars that come to my household. I use the side yard for a parking space because I don't want to interfere with the neighbor across the street or a little bit down the street when they have a function to get together, and they usually have 10 to 14 cars as well. The way I'm understanding it, this would interfere with my family function on a Friday night, because I know what my driveway will hold. I know how many I can park out front, but the overflow, I put in my side yard and have everybody faced where they can get out. This is for a convenient for my neighbors, for the traffic that goes up and down my block. This ordinance, the way I'm understanding it, and I've spoken to a couple of commissioners here, would really interfere with family functions that goes on. We're a tight-knit family, and we do things together. How is this ordinance not going to interfere with that. I have no clue.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I do not, I never mess with Mr. Curtis's family. Is it okay, Mr. Mateo, given what Mr. Curtis described about when he uses his side yard for the family functions and get-togethers and the frequency, how would this ordinance apply to him as far as being in trouble or fined or in any way?
I think I answered that before, and I believe Chief Kelly said the same thing. On special things like this, and of course, what I just did with our neighbors across the street, you made accommodations for them to do it for one night or something like that. We do currently work with neighbors. When I say that we work with people and do that type of thing, if there's something that somebody has a long-term type situation, when I say we work with them, it's not like I'm giving special dispensation to them, but if they need to put in stone or stuff like this so we can make it work, we will, okay? One-time event, a social event, we're not getting involved with. And I think the chief also concur, if you will, but I don't mean to talk for you, we will work with it. As you know, especially in a certain person's ward, we work with, Al Freed works with a homeowner who has a huge RV, and when we know it's coming in, it's parked on the street, and we work with it, and notices are sent out to the neighbors so that there's no problems. Again, we work with people, okay? All we're saying is this is the long-term people that are deliberately abusing their property with either vehicles or whatever, or just letting the properties go to waste. That's what we're trying to do. And that's where we are.
Okay, Commissioner Klein.
Yeah. I just want to clear up something. Back on May 4th, actually, whenever our board meeting was in May, this is May 4th is when the public, when the Code Enforcement Committee met, we made a motion to advertise for a public hearing for this ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the public hearing was scheduled for today, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this is the normal course of action in our board meetings, and we are conducting the business of the board. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that this is out of ordinary. This is when we deliberate in a public hearing. This ordinance was brought before us. If we would have deliberated at any other point in time and missed the and didn't have any of these conversations during a public hearing, without the public hearing, we would have been in violation of what we should have been doing anyhow. This is when this happens. It's not pretty, it's not quick, but this is when it happens. This is when it was scheduled to happen.
That is correct.
This was the commissioners deciding. The
Mrs.
public
Lehman?
hearing is where the
You're out
public
of
comes
order.
up.
Mrs. Lehman,
You've
you're
only
out of
had
order.
2 or 3.
Mrs. Lehman,
down.
you were already up at the podium. Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments from residents? Yes, sir.
Bill Pross, 2106 Wharton Road. I'd like to thank Mr. Jones for his input because I'm here to speak on my behalf in that I store a 23-foot boat on my property. I've moved it from my driveway to my side yard. Since it is a 23-foot boat, I have a short driveway. I don't want my neighbors on either side of me to have to look at the boat sitting in the driveway 24/7, 365. So it's now on my side yard, behind a fence that's gated, between the house and another fence. It's covered with a nice, firm-fitting top, and I think I do my best to keep my property as nice as it can be. The grass is cut, and what I've done is the best that I think I can do for my neighborhood for the storage of my boat, and I hope to be able to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Name and address for the record, sir.
Lee Vighetti, 710 Harrison Avenue in Ardsley. My biggest problem with this is you're saying licensed vehicles. I could understand that there are unlicensed vehicles sitting forever and whatever you get, but most of your landscapers have 1 or 2 trailers. They back up and half of them end up on their lawn. They use them every day. Nothing's sitting permanent. I also understand that this started out as a front problem. Now we're saying the side yard and backyard. So you're taking away anything that's sport, because people have the wave runners for racing, they have race cars, they have trailers for them. As long as they're being used, then it shouldn't be an issue. So this ordinance is going to violate that on our rights.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public? Name and address, please.
Good evening. Donna Brewer, 1644 Arnold Avenue. I just have a quick question. Is it, or is, I don't want to be out of order, I just want to know, is it or is it not proper protocol that at a general Board of Commissioners meeting such as tonight, the first business of order would have been to open the floor for comments from the citizens, and then go into your agenda, and then have comments from the citizens at the end? It's just a question.
In all due respect, I think the solicitor answered that.
That's not our policy and procedure. For a general board meeting, we take public comment on agenda items, and then we have general public comment at the end of the meeting.
Only. Thank you. Thank you.
No, it's not.
You're out of order, Mrs. Lehman. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none. Was there a, it goes back about 20 minutes or so ago, someone was going to change the verbiage on this to possibly front yard only?
I guess, I don't know if I can, I'll try to summarize, but I don't know if,
Yeah, I kind
it
of.
seems like to me there's a couple issues here. I mean,
Changing, it's going to need to be re-advertised.
whether we want to deal with watercrafts and trailers, and, I'm sorry.
Wait, excuse me, ma'am, did you want to comment on this?
Yes. My name is Joyce Meter, 1209 Rosemont Lane, and, you know, I'd like to speak to this, too. I would think that if you want to make your board meetings community-friendly, that you would want to give the respect of people's time to come out here to let people go first. It seems to me that you're hoping that some of us will leave because of our time factor. There's some people here that may have babysitters. There's, you know, a lot of different things, and I think people have been very respectful, listening. I don't have a flower business, I don't have a boat, I don't have any of this, but I do have some concerns. And to sit here over and over, it just feels like disrespect. It does not feel at all friendly to the community. You know, even with the parking situation, there was nowhere to park. Nobody out there helping people. It does not feel friendly to me, and inviting that you want more. I will not go to my neighborhood and say, boy, they really do want, input from the community. I don't feel that at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Go back. Commissioner Klein, you were asking a question.
Yeah, I guess we've talked about a bunch of things. There's been issues brought up about whether it should include boats or trailers. I think there's questions as to whether it, if we're going to allow for the temporary occasions, like a party or something like that, that's not really in the ordinance. If we want to deal with something like that, these are some of the questions we have, and I don't know whether it's something to be handled through amendments, or if anybody's interested. That's the way I've read it.
Mr. President, the issue of the temporary situations does not have to be in the ordinance. We use that all the time with every ordinance we have in the township. Our officers go there and try to use discretion, and in specialized situations, we amend, we just don't enforce the ordinance for a specific situation. Not on an ongoing basis, like was talked about, but on an individual basis on a specific case. And the perfect example of that, of course, is the parking regulations around churches on holidays and church days. We give more of a layoff at that time period, during that time period, just for that time period. Now, if it was in the middle of the week when that's not going on, if a vehicle is in violation, then they'll go back and they'll cite that vehicle potentially. So there does not need, from our standpoint at least, we just want you to know, we don't feel you need to have a clause in that ordinance or any ordinance that says that the staff and the officers will use good common sense when they go to a situation and give an exception when common sense says that should be done on a temporary or occasional situation.
Can I ask code enforcement, what's code enforcement's opinion on side yards, rear yards for boats?
Is that why you rolled your eyes? Well, technically, that's what we're saying. I mean, it's like, and I understand the young man that just mentioned that he has his boat parked in the thing. What is his next door neighbor, and especially if the homes are close together, does the next door neighbor really want to look out their windows and see a boat? You have that type of situation, and you know, we deal with that. Again, something like that, if we don't see it, we do act on complaints only if it's complaint driven. But again, use common sense. That's all we are asking.
Okay, Commissioner Farron.
Just last thought, and I appreciate all the comments, and I think the intention behind this is well-intentioned. I think everyone makes very, very good points, but I think it's too broadly written. I don't think it's accurate enough. I don't think it actually does anything that's going to help code enforcement. And what I keep hearing from a couple different people, and not to pick on Mr. Mateo, but just because a neighbor doesn't like the sight of something doesn't mean it should be illegal. And I have a real issue with saying that because my neighbor doesn't want to see something, that they can now go ahead and make a complaint to the office, and the office has to follow up on it, and now we're in some kind of violation. It could go up to $1,000, I think, is the top limit. So I'm going to get a $1,000 fine because my neighbor doesn't happen to like the fact that I do something on my property. And I get the point, and I understand the point, and I'm not trying to belabor the point, but we're chipping away at something here. And if we want to say homeowner rights could be applied to everything, that may or may not be true, but a lot of the things that were brought up deal with safety and health. And so when we talk about cutting the lawns, to Commissioner Meyer's point, a lot of that is because it could be rodents or vermin. That would not just be limited to your property. A boat on my property is going to be limited to my property, not just, we keep saying boats. I don't mean to harp on boats, but I just think it's too broadly written, and if it would be amenable or possible, I'd be happy to try to work and add some, hopefully what I would think would be clarity to this.
All right, Commissioner Bowman first, and then Commissioner Gillespie.
Well, I just think it's time for somebody to either make an amendment or let's vote on it as is.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance as is.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Question?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to amend it to eliminate watercraft and trailers.
Second.
Well, again, I left my parliamentary procedure book in, but there's a motion on the floor, and there's a second, and proper procedure should be that this motion should be dealt with. If it fails, then a second motion attempting to amend the ordinance can be made. The problem, as we've discussed here before, is that in a group such as yourself, without rigidly, when I say such as yourself, not who you are, but how many you are, without having certain proper procedures that we follow, we could just make amendments to amendments to amendments and never let anything actually come to a vote. So I've said this before, when there's a motion on the floor and a motion and a second, other than a motion to table, which always takes precedence over any motion on the floor, we should vote on Mr. Markman's, Commissioner Markman's motion.
Unless he withdraws it for some reason.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Opposed.
Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Spiegelman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Commissioner Myers?
Yes.
Commissioner Markman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalinowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Freiberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes.
Commissioner DePlacido?
Yes.
Commissioner Farron?
No.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Hecker?
No.
Commissioner Jones?
No, and only because I wanted my chance at that amendment.
Commissioner Klein?
I agree with Commissioner Jones, no.
Commissioner Luker?
Yes.
Well, there's 4 opposed.
I'm sorry?
There's 4 opposed.
Okay. So the motion passes. Commissioner Sanchez, continue.
Thank you, President Luker. believe we are on CE4, ordinance number 2097, real estate registry, vacant properties. This is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2097, real estate registry, vacant properties, to be scheduled at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on July 9th, 2015, at 7:30 p.m., and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
And finally, for code enforcement, we have CE5. This is ordinance number 2098, ordinance enacting Chapter 49, Vacant Property Review Board. This is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2098, enacting Chapter 49, Vacant Property Review Board, to be scheduled at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on July 9th, 2015, at 7:30 p.m., and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And that concludes our agenda for this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Sanchez. Commissioner Shriver, Director of Public Safety.
Thank you. PS1 is an ordinance number 2099 to amend Chapter 156 Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3 Parking Regulations, Section 25, Parking Prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, parking prohibited except certain hours, no stopping or standing, and Section 28 Special Purpose Parking Zones, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
PS2 is a motion to advertise ordinance number 3001, amending Chapter 156 Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3 Parking Regulations, Section 25, Parking Prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, parking prohibited except certain hours, no stopping or standing, and Section 28 Special Purpose Parking Zones for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on July 9th, 2015, and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff or public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And that concludes our agenda this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Shriver. Next, Commissioner Spiegelman, Director of Public Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we have 5 items on the Public Affairs agenda. First is PA1, reallocation of capital funding. This is a motion to reapprove the reallocation of $10,000 from account 07-24-800-7531, Ardsley Center burn box repair, to 07-24-800-7535, Crestmont Penbryn sandblasting. Both accounts are capital accounts. The projected expenditure to complete this project will be a maximum of $10,000, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Item PA2, a Lubavitch of Abington lease extension, Alverthorpe Manor. This is a motion to approve a 1-year lease extension effective August 1st, 2015, with the Lubavitch of Abington at Alverthorpe Manor at a rate of $17,047 annually, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item PA3, amendment to Clear Channel Outdoor Bus Shelter Agreement. This is a motion to delete 3 bus shelters on Old York Road, immediately in front of Abington Hospital, 2 southbound, 1 northbound, from the Clear Channel Agreement, and allow Abington Hospital to erect, operate, and maintain bus shelters at these locations, and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Residents? Name and address?
Laura Lehman, did you put in there that we would be made whole, as was discussed? Is that in the agreement? They would pay for in other words, we are paying basically to lose what was there now, and they said they would make whole if you wanted that. And so I think it was $4,000. So is that $4,000 in that agreement?
It's not.
It's not in the agreement.
Would you amend it so it is in the agreement, in the interest of the people of Abington? It is being had out of the pockets of the people of Abington, and it's being had at the expense of more advertising that they have to tolerate. So please at least allow for it to be paid for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Item PA4, Pennsylvania Child Protection Services Law Funding. Mr. Manager, did you have you want to read the entire motion, or do you want to make a comment right
Commissioner
now?
Speedman, I was going to ask the board's consideration if they would table this evening. There were a number of changes this week in the state legislature. The House Child and Welfare Committee passed a bill restricting the scope of the regulations passed last year. The governor also announced that he's limiting some of the fees that are currently in place. And there's also another bill pending in the Judiciary Committee that may exempt some first responders from any fees whatsoever. So I asked the board if they would table it until next month, they'd let the dust settle and see what the final regulations prove out to be.
Solicitor Clark, do I need to read the entire motion and have it seconded, or can we table right now?
Motion to table.
Motion to table. Second. And it's tabled.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Final item is PA5, Economic Development Pennsylvania Local Share Account Grant. This is a motion to adopt Resolution Number 15-022, approving Abington Township to submit an application to the Department of Community and Economic Development, the DCED, for the Pennsylvania Local Share Account Grant in the amount not to exceed $142,500 to be used to acquire 1100 and 1102 Old York Road, and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners?
So the only question I have, it's 142 because we have a contributing amount that we have to give, and that would take it up to the amount we would probably need to purchase the property.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from the public?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane, and I think we did get the text of that, and no, it's not for bricks and mortar, but there are other things in that Pennsylvania Share Grant that might apply for the Crestmont Community Center or the planning of the Crestmont Community Center or in other ways. And so, the part that was missing was in any way when these people stepped forward and asked for information on this, that they were not helped to understand the many different things that this grant could cover, so that it could be compared with the use that's being proposed here. And so there are apparently other Pennsylvania Share Grants. When would the next Pennsylvania Share Grant be available?
They're available every year,
But only one a year?
once a year.
So not until next year?
Yes.
So I would ask...
But there's $3 million available for this particular round.
Okay, so I actually would ask you to vote no until you've had a chance to see all of the possibilities where this might help this community trying to get a community center. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from residents? Name and address, please.
Louise E. Twyman, 1672 Franklin Avenue, Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. After you acquire this property at 1100 and 1102 York Road, what do you propose to use it for? Because I could think of a lot of reasons, a lot of things that you could use this property for, besides tear it down and widen the street.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone, Commissioner or Chief, I'm sorry, want to answer that question? Or would you like to confer with Mrs. Twyman after the meeting?
Exactly as Mrs. Twyman said, it is, the idea is, for those who don't know, these are the properties at the northwest corner of Old York and Susquehanna that jut out into the intersection and are responsible for the misalignment of Susquehanna Road, for the fact that there is no proper left turn lane on Susquehanna Road to turn northbound onto Old York Road. And as I think anyone from the police department and others can attest, most, in fact, of the problems that make Old York and Susquehanna the worst intersection in the township. Mm-hmm. So those properties, the intention is, in fact, to eliminate those properties, which would open up the possibility for PennDOT to properly fix the central intersection of our municipality.
And the only comment I'd like to make is, it's recently, frankly, I personally wasn't aware that there was a need for a community center. I'm now aware, and I thank you all for that. I'm also on the Montgomery County Redevelopment Authority Board, and part of the reason we're bringing attention to these share grants is because we are involved with them with the Montgomery County Redevelopment Authority. I don't think any of these projects are exclusive where other projects can occur as well. And I don't, and I wasn't at the last meeting, but I did watch the meeting on the air. I think what we can do is, and I'm more than happy to, help with the resources, because we do this with the Montgomery County Redevelopment Authority as well. I don't think you have to kind of take these other projects as bad projects because your project isn't getting the attention it wants. I think we give all these projects attention. And I think what I would propose, as opposed to kind of, attacking the other projects, let's talk about what grants are out there and how we can help you with their project. And I'm more than happy to help you with that. And I have the resources of a lot of grants, and I understand what they are. So if that's something that's going to happen, I'm more than happy to help you with it. I don't think it's productive for us to say, well, this project isn't good because you're not paying attention to ours.
Yes.
I think we have to address all of them. And I'm glad that you came, and I know about what you're looking for.
Yes.
And I'm going to start trying to figure out how to help you with that. But I don't think it's productive to say, okay, well, this one's not good because we're tearing it down. So that's a good one. John, Spiegelman's been working hard on this. We've all been thinking
Okay.
about it. Your project's a good one. The Powell project's a good one.
Yes.
I think we can work on all of these without getting into a situation where one's not good. And I'm more than happy to talk to you and work with the Redevelopment Authority and try to help
Thank
develop
you.
grants for your project as well. So
I would like to say that I am a retired law enforcement officer. I was the first female deputy sheriff in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the history of the city. I have my oldest son here who attended Powell. He used to be on the Drum and Bugle Corps at Powell down in Philadelphia. I've only been in Addington Township since the year 2000. And since I am a community advocate, I actually organized a complete community center down in Charlottesville, Virginia. We started with brick and mortar. We had tutorial. We had a game room for the young and the old. We were a resource center. We taught nutrition classes to help people become healthy. And it was an all-around center for the teenagers, for the young people, and for the old people. So I speak here as an experienced community center organizer.
Good.
And I'm also a community organizer. Anything for the community. I never intend to run for office. I never beg or ask for anything except for the community of Crestmont, where I live and where I pay my taxes on time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Markman, if I may, Mr. President. Commissioner Markman, thank you very much. I appreciate
Hold on, Commissioner. Chief, you want to comment, you said?
Mr. President, I'll just add on to what Commissioner Spiegelman said. As everyone knows from all we've gone through regarding the red light camera situation, that is the by far and away the worst intersection in the township in many respects, both in the number of accidents, injuries, and so on. Also, it is clearly one of the busiest intersections in the township, and as a result has been a problem for many years. And when we put the red light cameras in there, it certainly has started to alleviate some of the accidents and so on. But people have come to us, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing. They've come to us and said, well, that's fine that you're trying to do that, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is the configuration of the intersection. The configuration of the intersection is what prevents it from being able to have the movements that are necessary and so on to get people through there in an efficient manner. And again, being that it's such a high-volume intersection and one in the center of our township, it is one that has been a problem that's been looked at for many, many years. It's just that in the past, the availability of that property has not been there. So that's the reason why this is actually a kind of a sudden and timely opportunity for the township to fix something that's been a problem for a long, long time. It's not quite the Susquehanna going underneath the railroad bridge, but it's pretty close as far as the configuration that is going to take a considerable amount of money to fix, and one that's been there for a long time. It's been a vexing problem for the township.
We
So
need
it's a-
need a lot bigger share grant for that train bridge.
So it's a public safety issue. Commissioner Spiegelman, do you want to wrap the conversation up?
No, I just wanted to urge my colleagues to please support this measure.
Okay, the motion has been seconded. Any other comments from the public? This is regarding the shared grant.
Yes,
Yes,
Donna
sir.
Brewer, 1644 Arnold Avenue. Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman, for the work that you've done on this. After tearing these buildings down, will that resolve the problem? I guess this is a question more for you, Chief. Will that resolve the problem in that intersection? Will it be resolved at that point?
Mr. President, if it's all right, I'll answer that. It'll provide the opportunity to begin reconfiguring the intersection. It's not a one-step process that automatically it resolves it, but it'll give us the latitude to start beginning reconfiguring the intersection.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments from the public? Yes, ma'am, you were coming up? Yes, I am. Name and address, please.
My name is Joyce Meter. I'm at 1209 Rosemont Lane, Abington. Petition concerning poles and netting at the Memorial Field.
Excuse me, ma'am, is...
That's later.
We're...
Oh, we're still, oh, okay, I'm
We're still on
sorry.
this item, yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry for the misunderstanding. Okay, any other comments from the public regarding PA5, the local share account grant? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote at this time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Spiegelman?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That concludes our public affairs agenda.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Vice President Stephen Klein, Director of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, President Luker. Since the tax collector or the treasurer is not with us tonight, Mr. Blumenthal, the treasurer's report is available at the township manager's office upon request. I'll move on to our first item of business, FC1. Motion to A, approve the April expenditures as previously circulated to the board in the amount of $1,900,203.71 and salaries and wages in the amount of $1,764,791.34. And B, authorize the proper officials to sign vouchers in payment and bills of the contracts as they mature through the month of July 2015, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Kowalski.
Yes.
Shriver. Yes. Bowman.
Yes.
Lucido.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Gillespie.
Yes.
Becker.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Yes.
FC2, motion to approve the advance and travel expense activity for April 2015 as previously circulated to the board. Advance and travel expense reports were $0 and $6,276.39 respectively. 4-month expenses totaled $15,662.71, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Any from staff? Any from residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
FC3, motion to approve the clearing fund, deferred revenue, expense, activity, and petty cash balances for the month of April as previously circulated to the board. April petty cash balance is previously circulated to the board. Clearing fund receipts and disbursements for the month of April 2015 were $885.16 and $1,945.66 respectively. Deferred revenue expense, receipts, and disbursements for the month of April 2015 were $41.18 and $0 respectively, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners or staff or from residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
FC4, motion to accept December 31st, 2014 Township of Abington audited financial statements, single audit report, tax office financial statements, and agreed-upon procedures as presented by Township Independent Auditors Barbicane, Thornton, and Company, LLC, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners or staff? Any from the residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
FC5, Motion to authorize the execution of new electric generator and transmission agreements for all township electric accounts based on the results from the request for proposal or competitive price quotations received on June 11th, 2015, and I so move.
Second. The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners or staff? Any from residents? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
President Luker, that concludes the Finance Committee's agenda.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn over to Commissioner Tom Hecker, Director of the Pension Committee.
Thank you, President Luker. The Pension Committee has one item of business tonight. That is PENS 1, Resolution Number 15-021, Amendment to Article 4, Section 4.03, Abington Township Police Pension Plan. And this is a motion to adopt Resolution Number 15-021, amending the Police Pension Plan document for disability benefits, and I so move.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Someone have a comment? No. Any from staff? Any from residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Excuse me,
Commissioner Gillespie.
did we
Library.
approve,
The library.
That's
the
next.
library?
I'm getting ready. As soon as Commissioner Hecker gives me the signal, he's complete.
Green light. Thank you, President Luker.
Thank you, sir. And it was just brought to my attention, we have to go back to our 7:30 start of our meeting where we had a motion to fill a vacancy on the library board, and it's to fill a library board of trustees to fill the unexpired term of Joanne Worthner until December 31st, 2016. And it looks like there's been a name submitted.
Brian Mays.
I'm sorry?
Brian Mays.
Okay, Brian Hayes. Brian Mays, M-A-Y-S. First name Brian. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that concludes our formal agenda for the evening. And at this time, I think we've addressed all who signed up to speak. So at this time, does anyone want to speak? Come to the podium, name and address, and we have a 3-minute time limit. If you would acknowledge that, please. Thank you.
My name is Joyce Meter, and 1209 Rosemont Lane, Abington. This is a petition concerning the poles and netting at Memorial Field. We, the neighbors adjacent to Memorial Field lower level on Rosemont Lane, object to the full-time presence of newly installed netting apparatus. At the planning meetings, the board agreed to install netting that would prevent balls entering private property. The board stated that the netting would only be used when the field was in operation. The poles and netting were installed April 2015, and there has not been any activity at this end of the field. On each pole, there is a yellow caution sign stating that the netting apparatus should be dismantled in high winds and/or when not in use. The following neighbors are requesting that the nets be lowered until games are scheduled in the fall. There is a valid concern that poles and netting could become projectile in high winds that have come through quickly across that field. This could cause injury or damage to property. As an aside, the neighbors have had to call the maintenance department to get the tall grass cut. Everything has been replaced at the fields with the exception of the 50-year-plus aluminum fencing that separates the field from residential real estate. Is there a plan to replace this old fencing? It's the only thing that hasn't been, and I just want to call, this is my own personal aside, just to remind the board that we, the neighbors on Rosemont Lane, have had to endure the noise of construction at 7 a.m. all last summer and last year, the smell, and the rodent displacement and the dust all last year. And then it continues. And then I have another concern, since I might as well do it now, so I don't have to sit through this again.
You still have some time. Go ahead.
Okay. Also, this is my own concern and also the neighbors. There's excess water that runs out of the sump pumps down Rosemont Lane. Now, 2 years ago, they did the even side. I don't know if Aqua or somebody, whoever, came out remedied that whole thing. They don't have, it's dry. But they never came out and did the odd side. And that causes just as much water and ice, and it's an ice problem in the winter, and it goes to where the stop sign is, so it's very hard to stop because it just accumulates all there and can cause definitely problems going into Huntington Road. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any, if we're going to have that remedied, because it's a constant stream of water going down that street.
Okay, thank
So
you for
thank
your
you.
comments. We'll say that your commissioner gets back to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Do you want my petition?
You have,
It says
okay, yes,
manager.
give it to the township manager, please. Okay, name and address, please, and 3 minutes. Thank you.
Louise E. Twyman, 1672 Franklin Avenue, Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. First of all, I would like to thank the commissioners that answered my request, that sent me, an email and answered my request. I really, really appreciate it. I'd also like to thank some of the neighbors who chose to come out tonight to support us. And that's why we have these T-shirts that I financed that said, "Black Communities Matter." And I thank you all for listening to us. And I do feel that I feel hopeful. I don't feel the way I felt before. I felt in despair before. But right now, after talking to Mateo, my friend, and some of the others, I have a better feeling that Crestmont Ward 5 will not be ignored anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Donna Brewer, 1644 Arnold Avenue. Again, I want to say thank you to all the commissioners who heard me out on last week, and it's nice to be able to greet you all this evening. First and foremost, I want to make it very, very, very clear that no one here is in any way against the concept of PAL in any way. I want to make that very clear. That's not what our concern is. Our concern is that for over 40 years, our community has been disenfranchised, and that our young people don't have anywhere they can congregate. Most of our streets don't have sidewalks, and between the ages of 18 after they graduate and up to 24, the young adults, as you know, with nothing to do, can sometimes lead to less favorable actions, just simply nothing to do. So we've been asking for a community center for quite some time now. In 06, 07, when we were told there's simply no money, I learned that there was over $10 million in the unrestricted fund. In 2013, when we started this endeavor again with petitions, I was told that there was simply no money. And at that time, there was over $15 million in the unrestricted fund. And I concur with my mother that after hearing Commissioner Markman say, you know, there is grants available, I'm willing to help you with this, it really does give us some hope that something can be done to help get a community center that would better serve the entire community, the needs of the entire community. And we appreciate all of the commissioners and the staff and the work that you do in serving us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Okay. Victor B. Crevens, 3505 Westmoreland Road. I'd like to pay a big compliment to Chief Kelly and the police department for the phenomenal job they're doing regarding the solicitors that sneak into our township, because every incident that I have had with them, the police have been at my front door by the time I hung up the phone to call them. And in one instance, a solicitor said, well, my boss told me to come here, so the officer said, get your boss on the phone, he's getting a citation also. And it stops. If neighbors would simply call the police, they come out immediately and take care of it. They can't sit in every street corner and watch these guys because they're very sneaky. And it's important that we get them kicked out of there, and the police are very professional and very polite and very prompt. Again, I have nothing but nice things to say about them, and thank you again, Bill.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is William Hall. I'm the pastor of the Willow Grove Seventh Adventist Church, 1576 Fairview Avenue. I'm here with the community to support the community center. Crestmont, as you are aware, is a very high crime area. I have seen people that have literally moved away from Crestmont because of the drugs. It's imperative that we have some activities not only for our young people, but also for our people of age. We need to have a center in Crestmont that will help to uplift and encourage the people who live there. And I hope this committee will be able to look favorably on that. It's imperative that we will have something in Crestmont. Let's not reject. I came from North Philadelphia 10 years ago, and I have found more problems in Crestmont than in North Philadelphia.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to speak?
Michael Curtis, Senior, 1137 Tyson Avenue, Abington. I personally like to thank the police department that we have here. I think they do an outstanding job. As a grandfather and having grandchildren going to Highland Elementary, there's been times I've been hooting and hollering for the law enforcement that's been sitting there and catching these people just zipping through a 15-mile-an-hour speed zone. And with school getting out within a week, let's hope that everybody slows down and concentrates a little bit more about the people out there walking on the streets. Chief Kelly, thank you for you and your department. You've done a hell of a job in my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? And if there are none, I'll have closing comments from...
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane, and I asked Mr. Lefevre, do we have a copy here of the speaking rules at all? Because we definitely passed speaking rules where the public was allowed to speak at the Board of Commissioner meeting. I continued to fight so we could speak at committee meetings, and we were turned down on the committee meetings, and I was told to be happy that we had it at the commissioner meetings. So and in fact, we have had several occasions where I reminded somebody that there were people to speak first, and you allowed them to speak first. So I'm not sure how everybody got amnesia all of a sudden on that. The second thing I want to say is as regards a public hearing and the respect for all of these people out here, a public hearing is something very different. All of you commissioners took the first, I don't know, hour, I don't know what it was, of that time to discuss what you agreed to. But you actually were the ones who wrote the ordinance and had time, you had it in your packets, you had a committee meeting to go to, and all of you knew about it. The public hearing is where you advertise for people who don't know about it. It isn't where you create the ordinance. The public only spoke when I got up to ask you to respect these people who had come for so long. There had only been one other person behind me, and then I think there were two or three other speakers. That was the public hearing. Okay? What you were doing was creating what the ordinance should actually be that was going to be heard. And that's done in committee meeting. And I have been going to these meetings for 10 years and sat through these hours and hours of meetings. And I have watched you say that the long discussions don't belong in these meetings. They belong back in committee meetings. What you did to these people tonight was incredibly disrespectful, and all of you saw all of them sitting there. So one does have to wonder whether you saw them sitting there and decided that speaking longer might make some of them go home. You see the empty
Mrs.
chairs?
Lehman?
Many of
Mrs.
them
Lehman?
did. Many of them
Thank
did.
you.
Okay. And so my final comment is that I did see the colonnade responses. In the colonnade responses, if you recall, I came many times to this podium to tell you that the new colonnade was not being built the way it should be built. Our own solicitor accuses our own contractors of doing exactly that in the responses to that. And yet, when I came to this podium, okay, I was not treated with the respect of anybody even looking further into it. And it led to a $5 million lawsuit, as well as another lawsuit of over $75,000. And it should be of great concern to the residents of this township. And I believe that there's somebody on that dais who should be recusing himself completely
Lehman,
because of the
your 3
responsibility
minutes
to the
are up, Mrs. Lehman.
residents.
Thank you.
you.
All right. Are there any other comments from the public? If there are none, I'll have closing comments from commissioners, starting with Commissioner Bowman.
In light of the length, just come out to the July 4th parade, and we'll get Commissioner Myers down the shore. That's all.
Mr. DePlacido.
Yes, quickly, too, just jumping off of one of the speakers said today, yes, please, when driving through Abington, please drive like your kids live here, and I'll let Commissioner Jones this year talk about our 4th of July parade coming up as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Farron.
Thank you, President Luker. Again, very briefly, this Saturday we'll be selling T-shirts in support of the July 4th parade in front of O'Neill's, so please come down, support your local 4th of July parade. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillespie.
And of course, the Greater Glenside Patriotic Association, all day, 4th of July celebration starts with a children's program in Renninger Park at 10 a.m., free hot dogs, food, games, lots of fun, decorated bikes. Of course, the parade starts at 4, and fireworks at the high school in the evening, so I hope to see you all there.
Thank you. Commissioner Hecker.
Thank you, President Luker. Just a quick reminder to lock your car doors at night. I failed to do so last Thursday night for the second time living in this township, and our car was broken into along with 7 others in the Overlook Hills neighborhood. I want to thank the police department for their incredibly rapid response, including Lieutenant Hawkwin. Nothing of great value was taken, but it's a reminder, before you go to bed, lock your car doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner I'm sorry, Jones. I'm sorry.
Jones.
Okay.
I actually have a couple. I apologize in advance. The McKinley Fire Company's annual 4th of July parade will take place, believe it or not, on Saturday, July 4th. We'll start at 9:15 a.m. at the McKinley Firehouse. There will be parade, prizes, games, foot races, not for old people like me. So we hope that you all come out and have a good time. I would also like to thank residents, Abington Police, and others who helped again, that worked on the St. Michael's event and have made that something where we used to have a lot of issues, and it's something that has been peaceful for neighbors for the last few times that it's happened. There's been a lot of work that's gone into that with neighbors, with the police, with others that have all worked together, and I thank that. I'd like to thank Tim Clark from engineering, who worked with the EAC, Tacony Frankfurt Foundation, and residents in solving a creek bank problem, and Mike Powers as well, came up with a creative solution that actually saved the township money, and everybody met together. We all went out on a Friday afternoon and actually came up with a resolution, so that worked out well. Would also like to thank Ed Michelow for a number of issues that he's helped out with. And I would actually like to do one more thing, and that is to thank a number of people who came to Salem Baptist Church on this past Monday for a Safer Streets Task Force meeting. It's a program that is going to bring together police officers from various municipalities and townships, have them sit down in focus groups with young people and do role-playing and other things, and actually look at ways to creatively and proactively work at building relationships so that we have true resolution. I want to thank Chief Kelly for coming to that. Of course, Lieutenant Malloy and others were there, and I would also like to thank Salem Baptist Church for hosting that, and the Public Defender's Office. And finally, could everybody say a little something? My dog Sully's not doing very well. He's really sick, and if everybody could say something for Sully, I'd appreciate it.
Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, President Luker. Just a quick comment. We had our public meeting for the master bike plan in the township that we've been working on. That was on Monday. The proposed pathways or bike paths through the township that we're looking at are now on the web, or are going to be on the website shortly, and there's also a Facebook page which you can follow. The next public meeting will be September 21st, if I remember correctly, but that is also on the website. Get involved. It's an exciting thing to have happen, and also a trendsetter for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zappone.
No comment at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Spiegelman.
Yes, I want to remind everybody that 1 week from today, Thursday, June 18th, is the Township Blood Drive. There are still some spots available, so you can go to redcrossblood.org and search for Abington Township, or you can call Maria in the Township Manager's office and get one of those remaining appointments. And I just want to say a big congratulations to the Abington Senior High class of 2015 who were graduated last night, and also a special shout out to all of the sixth graders at all 7 of the elementary schools who are going to be finishing up there and moving on to seventh grade, especially the 2 in Ward 11, Copper Beach, and most especially Highland, including my daughter Amelia. Commissioner Jones, I'll keep a good thought for your dog. I hope things work out. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, President Luker. Just a quick announcement. As some of you may know, Abington Township was selected by Montgomery County for a walkability audit. They're doing several of these around the county. This one happens to be focused in the area around Noble Train Station, and the actual walking audit is going to take place on June 30th from 4 to 6:30 p.m., and it will start at Curds and Way Restaurant at 817 Old York Road, with a brief presentation and how to conduct the audit, and then hopefully we'll go out in groups and go around and make recommendations for various walkability improvements in the area that will culminate in a nice report we can use to implement those improvements. So hope to see everybody there June 30th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Meet at Curds and Way, 817 Old York Road. And I will see everybody at the 4th of July parades. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers.
No comment.
Commissioner Markman.
No comment.
Commissioner Kalinowski.
Just real quick, today the VFW lost a great friend in Drew Amici passed away today. And I know he was a big part of Abington. He was a big part of the Glenside Parade Association. He was a big part of everybody's life at the VFW. So just keep him in your prayers and your thoughts. He grew up in Roslyn. He was a Vietnam vet. He died being a Vietnam vet. And he's going to be missed. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schreiber.
It's probably too late for TV, but I want to remind everybody about the Roslyn Pet Fair, which is this Saturday at the Living Word Church on Easton Road. It's from 10 to 1. There's animal rescues, animals for adoption. There's raffles. All the money goes for animal rescue. We have a demonstration from the K-9 unit, from the police department. Food for sale, all kinds of pet-related products, vets in the area, and it's a really good time. We have a pony and a goat that are going to be there this year, too, so that's something new. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Michelow, Director of Public Works, has an announcement to make.
Just reminding everybody on June 20th from 9 to 1, we have the electronics collection at the Highway Art. Excuse me. We will be accepting TVs, but there will be a $20 charge per TV. Also on Friday, July 3rd is Township holiday, so there'll be no trash collected that day. Anybody normally has a trash collected, it will be Monday. But there will be no yard waste picked up on Monday. And that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
Also, we have the shredding event, which will be July 11th at the Highway Art.
Thank you, Ed. And in closing, first, thank you all for attending tonight, and thank you for your patience. A few closing items here. First, last month, I forgot to mention Mr. Dale Jonas of the Roslyn Fire Company for his assistance with the Corporal William A. Sidner, VFW Post 3398, in helping the new installed commander, retired Detective Sergeant William Holt, in conjunction with Memorial Day and Flag Day. So I made it a point to make sure I mentioned Mr. Dale Jonas, and thank you for his assistance from the Roslyn Firehouse. Secondly, I had a special request from one of my constituents, and I just wanted to thank Larry Mateo, who sent out a beautiful floral arrangement, and she sent a thank you note to commissioners and Abington Township staff. Your exquisite floral arrangement helped me to cope during my period of bereavement. I remain always deeply appreciated, Mrs. Margaret Pender Bing. So Larry, it was job well done. Thank you very much. And in closing, Friday, June the 26th, 2015, First Baptist Church of Crestmont will be celebrating their 105-year church anniversary on June 26, 2015. You can contact the church for any information regarding the gala they're going to have on that evening. So with that, I thank you all for attending, and good night.